So, prepping 2023 SHTF survival scenarios. Here we go. By Sigma Prepper. Of course, all of my content's completely unique and from me. I don't copy anyone and they copy me. I've been into this since about 2000 or whatever. So, yeah, everything you'll see here is from my own idea of what I think things should and shouldn't be, right? So, today's homestead security and defences is what we're looking at. Homestead security and defences. So like I say, there's a separate kind of a ordeal that we need to consider, make considerations for if we're doing a bug out scenario. That would be a completely different show that I do. We'll be talking about defences, security, protection in a bugging out scenario, right? So what we're going to be focusing here today on is going to be the homestead. So this is like, you know, staying at home, and so on. But I will be breaking down the differences between homestead, bugging in and bugging out, because bugging out isn't the option B, it's the option C. That'll be another show that I'll be doing specifically, but we will touch on that today. And of course, as usual, for information purposes only, the materials contained within this presentation are based on my own training, previous experience and personal skill sets. Sigma Prepper will not be held responsible for your use or misuse of the information presented. So no. So with that being said, here we are. Let's go. Brace yourselves. Time to leave your comfort zone, says Magic Hand. Thank you, my darling. Should we move that out of the way? I think we should. Should we move it out of the way from my face? I think that's a good idea. Let's pop you over there. Right. Thank you so very much. And thank you, Magic Hand, for my tea. There's about a third of a cup left. Magic Hand is on tea duty. Not tea duty, but... Thank you, my darling. Right. Here we go then. So let's get into a couple of slides first, as we do, just to set the groundwork and to set the foundation of where we're going to start from. So why do we need to prepare in the first place? Why are we even gathered here today? Well, the reason we're gathered here today is because, you know, modern Western society, and don't forget I've lived in lots of countries around the world, right, that aren't modern and aren't Western. And they're certainly here is suffering from learned dependency, right? And if you compare yourself now to how your ancestors, your great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers were, they knew how to plant potatoes and, you know, they knew how to rear goats and sheep and chickens. It was just normal for them, right? They knew how to store meat without refrigeration. They knew how to, you know, keep things somewhat hygienic without the sort of modern day chemicals and things we've got today, right? So basically, we've gone backwards in that respect in terms of knowledge. So our self-reliance, of course, is now at an all-time low. There's very few people who actually know how to survive at all. We've got a seriously globalized supply chain. We've seen the effects of that recently in the last 3 years with the JIT system, the just-in-time supply chain system. There are no stock rooms anymore. It's all basically as you buy something, beep, it gets ordered at the distributors and comes in the next day on a lorry, on a truck. So, you know, there's no room for error with the JIT system. And of course, your resources are already stretched to the maximum. But all these warehouse fires we've seen, the derailings, you name it, all the interruptions with the supply chain as it's been already. We've already got shortages of stuff as it is without anything on top of that. Plus our higher population density, and that's not necessarily a bigger population solely, but just the fact that the population densities within cities have become more and more dense. As people have gone from the rural areas into the denser cities. So it's become even more gnarly, right? In most places, it's very difficult now to get away from the average Joe. And of course, we're critically reliant on tech and big government. Yeah, that's the whole point of learned dependency, is they make you become dependent on the government. And then, you know, when it hits the fan, they expect you to go running to the teat of Big Daddy, if you know what I mean. So that's all by design, unfortunately. And, you know, another one I've added in here recently, actually, is the use of Uber Eats and eating out means zero preps. Because I've got friends of mine who buy their microwave meal on the way home from work each day. That's how much food they've got at home in their cupboards. Despite being one of my friends as the Sigma Prepper, right? They got literally like a microwave meal on the way home from work every day, and that's all they've got. Maybe a box of cereal, yeah. Maybe a tin of beans and some spices in the cupboard. That's it. So this has become more and more, particularly in the inner city areas where they rely on things like the Uber Eats and, you know, takeout and stuff. And of course, don't need to illustrate anymore to have the whole poverty and crime on the rise. Absolutely, mega rise. We're seeing that epically. There's even Walmart stores, as I've been reporting on the daily SHTF Intel. They're not always daily, but I like to try to. The SHTF Intel reports global analysis every day. You know, we're seeing it more and more. Even Walmart stores are having to close because of they can't ensure the security of their employees. So this is why it's even more important now than it ever has been to make sure we're prepared. But more importantly, why would you want to learn with me? But prepping for more than 20 years, polymath, autodidact, you know, into lots and lots of topics and subjects. 100% exclusive and original, as I said. This is, I write all my own stuff, all my own graphics, all my own designs, all my own principles, concepts, and so on, right? Visited almost 40 countries, been on the Amazing Race TV show with the missus and things like that, and you learn a lot from that. Bushcraft and survival enthusiast and everything else that's on here. So, you know, it's all very well people who watch other preppers and then do videos about it. The point with Sigma Prepper is a very different channel. This is, you know, this is from the heart, this is from the soul, this is from living it. Living in Asia when the tsunami happened, you know, living in Cyprus when the changing to the euro and having the, you know, the no man's land between the warring border of Turkey and things, and going to places like Cambodia where they're just gnarly everywhere, right? Pakistan, Dhaka. When you see these countries in the world, believe me, these countries are kind of like what we expect it to turn into as your perspective would be in the West. Very similar. Yeah, very minimalistically similar. So it's worth a lot having experiences living in those countries with those scenarios going down. So in terms of plausible SHTF scenarios, loads of them, and I can just keep this list going on forever. Of course, widespread hardware failure could do it. Societal economic collapse. I've already done episode 5 of these Prepping 2023 shows. We had the How to Survive the Economic Crisis. How to Survive the Economic Crisis. That was a great one. Do watch that. It's so relevant right now. I can't believe how ahead of the time that one was. So go and check that one out. Major weather disaster, you know, anything could happen to wipe out some infrastructure, fuel and gas shortages, any sort of attack, cyber attack, military EMP. Even that's more and more likely, isn't it? Let's face it, right? Solar flare could take all black swan events. There's lots of reasons why it could happen. Of course, go to sigmaprepper.com/SHTF-Intel, one of the main menu items on there, and you'll see the daily report and you'll see the thing showing exactly what's most at threat, most likely to be hitting the fan as a percentage. I think totalitarianism's at the top right now, but second from that is the economic failure and stuff like that, right? So here we go then. Just a reminder, we've got the live poll rocking tonight. Yeah, so do please cast your vote in the live chat if you are with us live. If not, feel free in the comment section if you're watching this afterwards to let us know what your greatest concern is too when it comes to security and defences during WROL, without rule of law, or /SHTF scenario, right? So, and again, your options were house burning down or somewhat similar, overpowered by gangs, family/friends coming and knocking, who know you've got a load of stuff, desperate mothers coming begging, and you just feel nasty to turn away. But we'll look at what the impact of helping these people, not helping these people, what the impact is going to have as we go through these slides tonight, right? It's really important stuff because, you know, you can make some pretty epic mistakes, fatal ones at that. So it's important we get this right. It's important we think it through properly, right? It's important that we, you know, we use our critical thinking skills and just be logical. And thank you everyone for joining us live in the chat. I do appreciate you all being here with us. I'm seeing some great names in there. Thank you everyone. Lots of VIPs in the chat, Patreon members. Thank you for your support. So the situation report then, the sit rep as they call it. What you got in store for us, Andy? What is it this time? So we're going to be using a very similar one to what I did for you fine people when we did the grid down scenario, where we looked at every day over a 2-week period as to what happens day by day with a complete grid down scenario, right? So we're going to use a similar scenario here. So what we're going to do is we're going to base this on a complete grid down. So this is our SHTF. This is how we're going to need this security and defenses big time because it's Mad Max styly. Booyakasha, right? So you got, this is what we're heading for. So this is our situation report, right? So just try and get your mindset into this. I'm sure you've pictured it a million times, but this is going to be the 1,001st time. Complete grid down scenario, no juice, no outlets, no nothing. Inoperable sewage systems, flush the toilet, it's not going anywhere. Inoperable water system. Turn the faucet, turn the tap, no water's coming out. Not a good look. That will happen within about 4 days of the power going out anyway, because the main, provincial pumps won't be running to keep pressure up on the water, to top them up to the water towers, to let gravity flow to your houses. Long story, we won't have water, right? So you'll have total cell and internet outage as well. Don't forget, your cell towers have less than about 48 hours worth of battery backup in them. And even that's for critical services such as, emergency service calls, no text message, no data, no nothing, right? So, and after 48 hours, that'll be nothing at all, right? That should be major. It looks like there's a Jameson out of that. Oh, Andy. So major transport disruptions, which is just inevitable, of course, where you don't have any traffic systems running, you don't have any, people don't care, they're in a panic, they're trying to get to the store, which is closed or completely ransacked already. And of course, all trade and commerce ceased with the digital system we're already in. Once the internet goes down, the power goes down, they have no way of taking your money, they have no way of checking that item through the till to even know what it costs. How many stores do you go into now where there's the price is actually on a sticker on the actual thing? It's not. It's just on the shelf. You pick it up and they scan it. So if you can't scan it because none of electronics is working, how are you going to even know how much it is to charge someone, even if they did have cash? You see? And you need electricity just for the cash register to open. It's just, again, not a good look. So, our mission: analyze the security and protection needs of a typical home during an SHTF scenario by looking at each threat and the possible outcomes. So that's what we're going to do first, right? We're going to prepare for a complete and sustained SHTF worst case scenario, assumed without rule of law, with desperate neighbours. So what we're talking about here is there's not going to be any cops, there's not going to be any fire engines, there's not going to be any paramedics, there's going to be none of that. It's just like hunker down and hope for the best. So obviously our mission is to survive the SHTF with minimal damage or harm to you, your loved ones, or your property, avoiding criminal actions and physical harm to others as much as possible. So of course, there's a great film, Channel 4 film, I think it was. It's on the Sigma Prepper Discord server. I'm thoughtful enough, you see, to put on the Discord server here the SHTF themed movies. Now, if you scroll up the top there, our Sandy there's kindly put on here Britain Blackout. Well worth a watch. Britain Blackout. There's a lot of research that went into that, and it basically, this is on the SHTF themed movies room on the Sigma Prepper Discord server, and the links are all listed below this video in the description, right? And it's a great one because it takes through sort of what typically happens in a grid down scenario, and one of the lessons to take away from that, and you'll see if you watch the film, okay, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. At the end, ironically, there's a guy called Andy who's actually thinks he's a prepper, but he's a bit of a joke, right? But he goes to a supermarket and it's sort of been ransacked, and there's like the windows are all smashed in, right? And the lights are all turned off, there's no power. Hence Britain Blackout, the title of the movie, right? And he's in this store and he ends up fighting with this dude on the floor, right? Over a tin of beans or something off the shelf. And in the end, he ends up like, I think he did something and he slammed his head on the floor and it basically, logged him out of the admin, like totally, completely. And the minute he did that, fudung, and this dude was like, logged out, all the lights come on. So of course it's like back to normal. So, right, avoiding criminal actions and physical harm, because you need to make sure that we don't know when this is all going to sort itself out, right? And they're going to start having a mopping up session afterwards, and all the cops start going around investigating everything that's gone on during this period of purge or whatever, for like the last 2-3 months or whatever it's gone on for, right? So do bear that in mind, because you just assume you'll be accountable for anything you do, even in an SHTF scenario, even in a WROL without rule of law, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that the rule of law won't be retrospectively applied, you know what I mean, when things get back up and running. We just don't know. So just assume it is. So the objectives then, we're going to learn how to prepare with maximum efficiency. We don't want to buy stuff we don't need. We don't want to we don't want to miss out things that we did need, right? Minimize the risk of missing critical items, unseen gotchas, and things like, what do you call it, I can't even say the words on here. See working examples of security threats and the ways we can avoid or manage them. I'm going to be looking at our perimeter moving in closer and closer to us, as you'll see in a minute, right? And that's the way we're going to do it today. And we're going to make sure we get the maximum survival juice out of our prepping squeeze, as usual. Now, before we get into the juice, which is next, just bear in mind that, of course, everybody has their own unique considerations, which I will be taking into consideration as we go through, right? So just a heads up here. Your climate and environment's going to dictate a lot in terms of if it's boiling hot and you've got no air conditioning and you can't really bug out into the desert and stuff like this, right? Your local laws and restrictions means that, of course, you know, some places you've got the Second Amendment, some places do not, and so on, right? Local culture, crime levels will make a difference, and that can be your local town level of crime. The country you live in, typically what levels of crime it is, will dictate how prepared from a security and defenses point of view you would need to be, and what your threat level is going to be, right? And of course, depending on whether you're rural, off-grid in a cabin somewhere, or you're in a city apartment in New York, right, in the Bronx or something like that, or in Chicago, it's going to be a very different experience. And of course, we'll talk about that again in a minute as to maybe some alternative options, right? So of course, you've got your property size, garden available space is important in terms of what you can even store. I appreciate that, so it'll be tailored accordingly. And then we've got your family size, dependents, pets. Now, a lot of things that I specialize in is affording people some form of competitive advantage, force multiplier in the way that they're preparing and the way that they go about their security, because I appreciate a lot of us are just normal people, a normal small family. We don't have loads of big family and friends everywhere nearby as some big crew, right? A lot of people that follow the Sigma Prepper channel are Sigmas, in as much as they're quite self-sufficient, independent, self-reliant type people as a character, and therefore don't have a massive circle of friends or even family particularly. We tend to be the lone wolf of the family types, you know, and so it comes with its own downsides, but we make up with that with things like this channel here, where we can all, despite being Sigmas, come together as one big wolf pack and enjoy each other's knowledge and experience without any judgment, without any ego, without anything like that, right? We're just here to learn and to increase our chances of doing well if and when we need to, right? And it's looking like we need to more and more, right? So property size, going to be a big thing. Your family size, you know, there are ways that we're going to try and look at things that we can do to use as force multipliers if there are only 2-3 of us or something in our property, right? So disabilities, I appreciate some people have some, you know, mobility issues. Again, you're maybe caring for elderly in your home. This will create other opportunities and obstacles for you, depending on which way you look at it, and we'll look at that as we go through. So personal survival and self-defense knowledge, you know, if you're like karate expert and super commando and been in the military, SAS and, you know, Navy SEALs for 25 million years, then obviously you're going to do a bit better than a single woman who's you know, never done really anything, right? So I appreciate that. And of course, budget, financial means. Not everyone's got epic sheets, right? I certainly haven't got epic sheets. I'm fortunate that all the sort of stuff that I've invested in over the years was done before I got completely wiped out in 2020, right? So I've not really been able to do much since. So the best that I can do is to help you find people with the things that I've been able to think through, design, build, and the things that I've bought that are useless and have gone in the rubbish bin, right? For example, it's important that I share that with you too, because I've bought the stuff that you shouldn't buy so that you don't have to over the years, right? And bear in mind, we're talking since about 2001. I've been buying, you know, security, prepping, bushcrafty, survivally type stuff. Magic hand will tell you. So let's get into it then. So first of all, let's just cover off the difference between homesteading, right? So staying at home, bugging in, or bugging out. Most prepper channels that I see don't even seem to realize there's a difference between these three. They think there's two options: staying at home or bugging out, right? There's three. And I'm going to go through this with you now. This will be a show that I'll do because it's a complex one. There's a lot involved in this one specifically. So this is going to be a separate show, but I'm just going to pull some slides out of some stuff I'd already started designing for it, and just to give you an overview, because it's important for this security and defenses show that we cover this off, right? Now, the general idea is that homesteading is what most people are looking to. That's, you know, that's the green, right? That's the least bad option. And so as you can see the example there, a typical property, you've got a garden, you know, you've got fences, you've got neighbours, you know, preferably not, but we'll assume we have. It's most typical. And, you know, we've made our efforts there with our garden beds and things like this to make sure we've got, you know, and of course, then you've got your bugging in, right? And then you've got your bugging out. But we're going to go into these one by one and we'll look into it in more detail. So let's start off with a homestead, right? Which again, typical scenario. This is what we expect people to be looking like in their dream home with their gardens. This isn't my garden or anything like that. This is just images I've pulled, right? So this is the idea homestead then. And what we're looking to do here is to hunker down in your home, right? But the difference is, you know, good supply of food. We've done this with the principles of preparedness, the advanced principles of preparedness. If you haven't seen that one, that's a definite must watch. That comes under the prepping 2022, but the advanced principles of prepping, that was the one I started off with so everyone can understand the basic principles of prepping. And it's really important because I talk about things like prepping profiles with like the kitchen queen, the commando, the different types of preppers and their downsides and the things that they miss, right? So do check that one out if you haven't seen it, the advanced principles of prepping. But in there, it covers all the stuff of what is 1 week's worth of preps versus 6 months versus 1 year and everything, right? Now, play it cool and blend in. So the idea being, right, is that you don't want to be standing out. You just want to look like all your neighbours and, you know, you want to look like you're struggling too. I'm struggling. And you don't want to be looking like you've got loads of stuff, like a big old generator in the garden. You know, it's like, oh, you're doing all right then. So you got to play it cool, right, and blend in, defend your property proactively, obviously, and try to support your immediate neighbours and community as best as possible. So you don't want to alienate your neighbours because you want their help. Now, you may not be able to gain their help until the time comes where you feel you can approach them and they feel themselves like they need the help of you to give them a watch out or whatever as well, right? But we're going to get into that as we go through. But the idea with homestead is different to bugging in and it's different to bugging out. And as much as we're sort of like rocking in our neighbourhood as everyone else is, it's just we've got stuff and they haven't, typically haven't. And again, this goes back to the considerations that are unique to you, because depending on your preparedness level in your community, right? If you're living on a prepper community or whatever like that, you're doing all right because everyone's cool, right? If you're in quite an affluent area where they've probably got some supplies in the fridge, then there's going to be a few more days before they start knocking on neighbours' doors, right? If you're in an area like I'm talking about, my mate who buys his meal on the way home from work every day, a microwave meal, he's not going to have anything in the cupboard. So they, you know, people in areas who maybe not quite as well off, who roll that like that, they're going to come knocking quicker, right? So anyway, sustainability of the homestead is good, right? That's why we're going to be dealing with that today with the security and defences, right? And we're going to be looking at the strategic advantages as well with homesteading. But subject to situational analysis, you always be checking out what's going on, right? So your second option, now bear in mind, these may not be options. You may be forced into these. Now, bugging in is different from homesteading because bugging in assumes that you've like perhaps your community's become compromised in some way. You've got gangs roaming the streets. You've heard windows smashing down the road 3 nights in a row, and you just know that tomorrow night is going to be your windows that are going to be caved in next. This is the problem, right? So just remember where we are right now. We're a couple of weeks into a grid down scenario and no one's got anything and they're lich knocking on doors, right? Now, bugging in is where you feel like your property or your area has been compromised and it's dangerous to the point where you've got a bunker under your house. Like this is like a classic matey boy bunker, as I call it. That's embarrassing. I can't even remember the dude's name. You'll let me know in the chat who I'm thinking of, the bunker dude, right? But this is one of his. Or it's maybe just as simple as like you're in the attic, right? So maybe it's just hiding in the attic or hiding in a crawl space. But the idea is that you're trying to pretend that you're not there. And so that people can come into your home and rummage around all your stuff and they won't know you're there. That's the idea. And you maybe even leave a small decoy box of stuff so they just take it and go and just leave, right? So this is what we're talking about with bugging in, right? So you're going to be remaining on your property but hidden from sight. Now this is difficult, don't underestimate it. Hence the sustainability I've got here is to consider a temporary measure, right? So And the reason being is because in a hidden crawl space or in your attic or things like that, or Atlas bunker, sorry, that was what I was thinking of, Atlas bunker, right? My boy, Mr. Atlas Bunkers, right? But go and check out his channel if you're not familiar with Atlas Bunkers. He's a funny guy, I like him, but, you know, there's a few... Everyone has their foibles, don't they? But this is about you being covert. So this means, you know, not having all your smells of your food cooking coming out, making no noise. And you know, the problem with this is you could end up with somebody moving into your house while you're hiding in the attic and now you're stuck. Right? So bugging in's different from homesteading and bugging out, because you're trying to hide and other people can come in your house and maybe it's completely cleared out and windows smashed everywhere, but you're hiding in the attic or in the basement. Now, third option then, option C, is bugging out. Cheers, everybody. Doesn't this look... Let's say cheers to our romantic view of bugging out. And of course, as an avid bushcraftsman and camperer and scout leader and all the rest of the things I am, right? And claim to be, right, as a wonderful axerer and all these other things, right? The reality of it, yeah... I cut myself every time I go bushcraft camping, every time without fail, no matter how experienced you think you are. I mean, of course, when I'm doing things like carving spoons, you are opening yourself up, no pun intended, to more opportunity to cut yourself. But I'm just saying that the reality of bugging out, I mean, it's the same really if it gets gnarly in your home, you've got broken glass everywhere and everything. I'm just saying, this is a very romantic view of it is all I'm trying to say, right? And there's no reason why it doesn't have to be. But bugging out's got a different problem, don't forget, because first of all, it's typically about as far away as you can walk, right, or whatever your transport plan allows for, right? You're not going to be able to take all your stuff. If you consider what you can fit in your home, your garage, and your attic, and your spare room, and everything else, compared to what you can actually pile into your vehicle and take to your bug out location, wherever that is. Plus, if your bug out location is designed to be sparse of people, if nothing completely, you know, a void of people, then it's going to require trekking through the woods. It's not going to be somewhere you can drive up to, clearly, right? And to a degree, even if you've got quad bikes or something. So as a result, you're limited to whatever you can carry. Yeah? So that's a big limitation already, because water is a problem, don't forget. You need lots of it, right? Like a good 5 litres a day per person if you're being active, right? Per adult. 5 litres, a gallon a day. So, bugging out. So this is just so we know what we're talking about as we go through these slides tonight, because this is important stuff, right? Because there may come a point where bugging out is the only option you got, right? So the idea is to be escaping and evading to one of your predetermined bug out locations via available transport methods, right? Like I say, that could be a quad bike, that could be a boat. It could be an RV or whatever, right? So here's the problem is obviously sustainability relies heavily on whatever supplies you can take with you. You're going to be looking at foraging, you're going to be looking at hunting, you're going to be looking at fishing, right? And your bug out location, if that's what you're relying on, needs to obviously have those things afforded to you in terms of the wildlife, in terms of a river of lake of some kind that isn't poisoned. River or lake is good because that's your water supply with your Berkey filter or whatever you got with you, right, for your water filtration. So again, consider it a temporary measure unless you're Robinson Crusoe styley, you know, unless you're like get really into it, but it's very difficult. I followed so many people for so many years. It's never as easy as you think. Yeah, you can get so far, and cool, if you really had to, humans are pretty hardy, but don't underestimate the difficulty of bugging out. When I go for like 3-day bug out in the middle of nowhere with just my pack and that's it, nothing else, right? Even then, I take a 40-litre aqua roller, you know, it's like a big water barrel that's got tyres on it and you can roll it, right? So I roll that through the woods, right through the forest, right? And that lasts me a weekend with an extra bit to spare. So if I was having to get my own water every day as well, yeah, it's hard work. So something to go over here. You need to choose wisely, because we're going to be talking about a situation where you may feel you have no option but to bug out. Now, one of those examples is in the live chat tonight. Right, now in the live chat tonight, we've got what is your greatest, do vote if you're joining us live, don't forget. There's a live poll I set up for us tonight. And it is, what is your greatest concern when it comes to security and defences? right? What's your greatest concern when it comes to security and defences? And this is what I did as the vote tonight. And you'll see one of them here is house burning down, right? Overpowered by gangs. Now, bear in mind, if you're overpowered by gangs, that could be a reason why you're forced to have to bug out, because the whole house is trashed. You haven't got a window you can even close in the house, right? For all you know. We'll get into that as well in a minute, right? So if your house burns down, you get petrol bombed or something like that, who knows, right? People are crazy, right? If they haven't had their Class A fix or whatever, if you know what I mean, if they haven't had their bottle of whatever in the last couple of weeks, if you know what I mean, this is what you've got to anticipate, right? Is more for the reasons you can't think of than for the reasons you can, because people go pretty gnarly, right? Like I say, when they can't get their meds, they can't get their... Yeah? Think it through. It's not a good look. Now, here's the problem with your timeline, is that you'll notice these arrows go one way. One-way arrows, right? So if you leave your homestead to bug in, that could be leaving to the bottom of your garden to go into your bunker or some hidden shed you've got or whatever that you've dug on your property, but it's in your property. That's considered bugging in. Or you've popped up to hiding in your attic, in your loft, right? Once you go in there, you're stuck in there, because if somebody does move into your house downstairs or whatever in your main house, you can't come out of your bugging location. You can't come out of the attic because you're going to come face to face with them. Equally, if you bugging in long enough and then you decide to leave and bug out because you feel it's getting too gnarly, then you're going to have to leave your neighbourhood, walking past probably a bunch of gangs that have already got themselves established on all the street corners, waiting for people like you, walking along with your brand new boots and your brand new bug out bags on your back, right? And everyone else is looking all dishevelled and, you know, like something out of Hunger Games. Yeah? Nah. You basically... You know, and again, if you bug out, there's no going back to bugging in. If you bug out, there's no going back to the homestead, because it's like Katrina, right? Remember what people's homes were like when they came back, right? Nothing left. So bear that in mind, right? Now, if the security and defences situation gets so overwhelmed, or your house does burn down, this is the last we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to be strictly into the security and defences, because we need to get the option of bugging out of the way first. Like I say, it'll be a separate show anyway. But an example scenario, so this is like a thought exercise I'd like you to have. Look at that, Robert McNamara in there with the Streamlabs. Thank you so very much, my man. I really appreciate it. And of course, this channel isn't monetized because it's been held back big time by YouTube. But I've got Streamlabs rocking instead. Link is in the description. Thank you so very much to Robert McNamara for supporting the show, supporting the channel. Couldn't do it without you guys. And thank you to the VIP patrons. Really looking forward to our after party tonight with the VIPs in the Discord. That's one of the great benefits of being a VIP patron, don't forget. We have our after parties where we can all talk amongst each other with audio and video. And obviously we don't have as many restrictions on our conversations, if you know what I mean. So, what we're going to do here for your example scenario before we go through is just assume your local street neighbourhood is becoming dangerously violent and chaotic, right? So like I tried to... Right? You're hearing windows smashing down the road, screaming, crying, going on 5 doors down, 6 doors down, 3 doors down every night. This kind of stuff, right? People sobbing at night you can hear, and it's not a good scenario, right? So you got that going on. So basically, this is your thought exercise. Would you rather be homesteading in a city apartment block with all of your stuff, all of your preps? Or would you rather be in a tent in the middle of nowhere with your hunting equipment, rifle, and a bug out bag? So consider the pros and cons of each, right? Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments below, right? Given that scenario, right, where it's like properly hitting the fan and you're in a city apartment block with all your stuff, what would you rather, right? Would you rather be bugged out with a river right next to you, your fishing rod, maybe a crossbow, maybe rifle, maybe, you know, some water filters and a tent? That's what you got to figure out, right? The minute it feels like this is going to be safer for you, that's when you know it's time to bug out. When this seems and feels safer to you than at home with all your stuff, that's when you know it's time to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at your homestead. So we're doing the homestead security and defenses here, right? So we've covered the bugging out. We know what the threshold is. We know the difference between bugging in, bugging out, and homesteading. So we've defined the options as they are. So lots of people saying tent. Cynthia, my darling, great to see you. Thank you for being with us. And by the way, Cynthia, I received your snail mail letter. I really appreciate it. It was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, my darling. It meant so much to receive that. Thank you, Daily Survival, for covering it over there in the chat. Our moderator of all moderators. Sandy, one of our moderators as well. Thank you so very much, Robert. Look at the respect for Robert for the super chat. And All American Prepper in the house with us today as well. Great to see you, my man. You should go and check out his channel. I'm number 16 on the like button, he says. Sandy Sheets. Oh dear, thank you so very much, and really appreciate it, everyone, for being here with me. Yippee, says Cynthia. No one's gonna be sleeping on those said sheets. No. Yeah, look, Cynthia's got 5 acres. 5 acres. You can come here. We are. So, who has knowledge of your preps? This is for you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you, right? This is for you now. Not everyone has a hold of wolf pack here at the Secret Prepper channel, but you, individually, this is for you. Right, so this is your own unique personal threats. Right, everyone's going to be different. Right, now this is going to determine your... This is going to determine your survivability to a degree, right? So who has knowledge of your prep? Some people shout about it. They tell all their mates they can't wait to show everyone all their gear, right? Which is fine, you know, but... Obviously, there are downsides to that, yeah? Because sometimes you have to show people to encourage people themselves to get into it. Because if you've got friends that also prepare, that's 1 or 2 or 3 less friends that are going to come knocking on your door, right? So, proximity to others, population density is obvious. Let us know in the chat what your situation is, and maybe we'll look at those in our scenarios as we go through tonight, right? And we'll keep it so we can keep it as open as possible. We'll just use critical thinking. I'll give you my logical breakdown as to how I would deal with your situation, right? So feel free to whack it in the chat and in the comments below, because I can do a follow-up video as well. So the size of your land and property is going to be a problem for you or not, in terms of, you know, if you're an apartment block, your land and your property could be the premises of the foyer, including the reception area, the stairwell, and your thing, or so on, right? But it could be you've got, as Cynthia there, talking about having quite a few acres, 5 acres of land. You've got another problem now, right? So Cynthia's got a different problem to somebody who only needs to really worry about their property in terms of their hallway of their apartment block, where some people have to worry about how do you protect 5 acres of land. Think of the entry points, and we're going to look at that in a minute. So your local community preparedness level, as I said, you know, overall community level of preparedness is going to have a big thing. The size of your family, your trusted community relationships. I mean, do you even have people that live near you that you would consider friends that you trust? You know, a lot of people don't. Yeah, it's very fluid. You know, a lot of people become geographically dispersed around, you know, from where they were born, with the friends they grew up with. When they get married and they have children and so on, they move somewhere near a school that's nice. Just the way it goes, you know. So some people don't even have any trusted community relationships if they've just moved to a new area and they're newcomers to the area, right? So also you need to be considering your own personal scenario, where you live in terms of the roadways that go around you, the choke points, where the typical traffic road pass-through points and things like this are going to be different for everyone. I'm going to be pulling some examples out for us today. Tactical supply routes. You could have something significant passing through your town or your village or your city, depending on what you've got near you. Perhaps you've got some infrastructural threats, like maybe there's a military base nearby. Maybe there's a warehouse or something like that that could be a target for marauders or something like that to go and take over a warehouse. If you're living right next door to that, you could be caught in a crossfire, if you know what I mean. So wildlife and other dangers, of course. If you're living in a country that's got bears and lions and tigers and hippos and rhinos and crocodiles. Do you know what I mean? I mean, everyone's got different problems. Here in the UK, there's not a lot. There's not a lot going on that's going to do us in. We've taken care. We've taken care of nearly everything in the UK. There's some badgers and some squirrels, some foxes That's your lot. Don't even really have any snakes here. Got some slow worms, which ain't going to do anything. You may be different though, of course, so hence, I have to consider everyone's scenarios, not just my own. Here we go then, tactical advantage of Homestead. So don't let go of these advantages don't be too quick to let go of these advantages, right? Because this is why I started off with the homesteading versus bugging in versus bugging out. Because knowledge of your local area and culture, if you're bugging out somewhere, you're not going to be as familiar. It's unlikely anyway. Your local community is, you know, it's a limited threat for you and your homestead because you know people around you. They know you, you know, even if it's just someone up the road, you maybe see them in the morning when you go into work, right? Every day. And of course, when it hits the fan, they're not going to be the ones that are going to be beating down your door and threatening you, are they? Because they know that they are a neighbor, even if they're maybe 2 streets away. They know they live nearby, and they know the chances are if it all gets back to normal when the dust settles, right? They know that there's a possibility you may see them, you know, giving them way in your car in the morning on the way to work. It's like, here's on you go. Oh, that's you, right? So the point is that your familiarity with the locals in general are going to become less of a threat to you in your home area, right? Because there's less chance they're going to get gnarly. So good trusted friends living nearby could be an advantage. You've got friends and family that live around you. Of course, you could get together, and of course, when it comes to tactical communications, we'll look at that as well in a few slides' time, and the advantages of having people living across town that you can coordinate with, and so on, right? The tactical comms side of it will be a separate video I do specific to ham radio communications and other forms of communication, which is a very important one to do. Everyone's been asking me for that. I did one many years ago on a different channel, and everyone loved it, and they keep wanting me to do another one, and this one is going to be much better, right? So, locally prepared stashes and hideouts, and your knowledge of the hunting and foraging areas around your area. There's lots of benefits of you being in a homestead, right? So you need to make sure you're taking advantage of it and doing things like planning your vantage points and your possible choke points, yeah? And, you know, you already have an intimate understanding of your home layout and your property and everything, so where your good sort of hidden points are, where the sort of shaded areas are that somebody could be hiding out and so on, right? That you could do with lighting or maybe filling with junk. Old scrap bicycles or something, right? And of course you've got stuff like full access to your prepper goodies, which you wouldn't have if you were out in the woods. So here we go then. This is where we start getting progressively more gnarly. Progressively more gnarly, right? So here we go. What we're going to be doing then is, the way I've decided to break this down is into your defenses and security from a... Now, I used to run my own security company, just so you know, right? Home and office security systems I used to install and develop, right? So, I'm going to look at this from a perimeter point of view, and it's just the easier way to break it down. So we're going to start off from our least biggest threat, from starting all the way out, and then we're going to work in closer and closer and closer into ourselves, looking at each level of security and sort of things we need to watch out for, right? So what we're going to start off with then, and we're going to use Google Earth as our kind of like, as my guide to help you to visualize what we're talking about and to visualize our tactical scenario that I'll be putting together for us, so we can sort of kind of logically understand what concerns I'm going to raise with you here, right? So what we're going to first look at then is the wider area. So the wider area, we're talking about like your bigger town area, right? So we're talking, you know, some sort of a town. I mean, I've just chosen this town. This is our town for today. I choose a different one every time I do these presentations, right? But this is somewhere random in the UK, right? It's nowhere near where I live or any of my friends or anything like that, right? Now, this here happens to be the house I've chosen. This is our subject property. So this will be the one we'll be using as our example today, just to illustrate. I feel it represents everything we need. It's got the right property. It's got a bit of garden. It's got a community. It's a cul-de-sac, which offers other problems and opportunities. And it's a smallish town, not a city, but enough properties to give you a problem, right? Now, the wider area we're looking at just generally, you need to start looking at, for example here, We know that this town, obviously, we've got a railway here. Yeah, we've got railway tracks that are running through. Yeah. You can see there's a river here as well that runs along, right? So this is potential hunting grounds for fishing, for example. Yeah. There's a few areas of woodlands as well where you may be able to, you know, get yourself some birds or something. You can see the woods here. You can see like sort of forest section where, you know, there could be some wildlife in there. Could even be a potential hidey bug out location, don't forget, nearby as well. So this is your wider area that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to be using as our example as pretending this is where you live, right? So let's just pretend we all live in this house. It's quite a nice house, isn't it? Better than the house I live in. But and it looks like an alright town, but it's got everything that we need in terms of what I need certain ingredients to be in it to help you go through this, right? And you'll see as we go through, right? So it's quite difficult to find a town that's got all these things in it and it's got decent quality 3D mapping doing, right? It took me ages. Now, so the wider area, you're going to want to, because you're not really going to know what's going on, the reason I've got on here the wider area intel, right? You see up here I've got wider area in brackets intel, is because in terms of your security from a perimeter point of view, there's not really much you can do from an offensive point of view to, let's say, for example, if you had a gang of peeps coming in this road here, which looks like it's the main road into your part of the village, right? So you'd have to come down this road here, right? To your little estate to get there. And again, then you've got this road here. Doesn't look like it, but there's a road here. Yeah, in that bushes. So there's a road there as well, right? That leads in and out of your village. So in terms of your wider area intel, what you could do with knowing, really, to get the best heads up as possible in terms of, because you want as much time to prepare for the threat to get to you as possible. That's the key. So the wider perimeter you can have your eyes on, right, and your intel coming in, the more chance you've got to prepare. Now that could be your local neighbours combined together in preparation, so you know where the threat's coming from. You can all be, not all of you, because you don't want to leave flanks open, but you know, you can be positioning yourself ready at the point where they're coming in from. So one of the examples you see is that you could have a friend that's over this side of town, right? You could have somebody who lives here, for example, yeah, maybe in this house here, who can see the road, right? And so it may be advantageous, right, for him to have a ham radio or something, so that if they see a bunch of trucks or whatever coming down this road towards our house here, we live here, don't forget, we live here, right? So it means that when they're coming through this road, we would get a heads up. Now equally, it would be good if we had a friend, and we'll pretend we've got a friend that lives here as well in this house, right? Or it's actually a friend of a friend, but it doesn't matter. They're good enough to give a ham radio to, right? That's why you should always have more than one. Have a couple for your neighbours, right? Don't rely on them having their own. I've got a couple spare for our close neighbours, right? They don't even know I've got them for them yet, right? But I have. So the idea being is that if you can get the heads up from these people that there's someone coming up the road, right? And if we look at ours, so this is the importance of having the intel of your wider area. Yeah? So that we can see what's going on ahead of time, so we can prepare for it, right? Now, the problem we're going to have, so if we come back to here and we get into the list I prepared you here, right? So use your wide area knowledge and local intel to plan through the SHTF scenario. So this is what I'm talking about with the local radio stations that are local to this town, in terms of anything that they're going to be announcing with notifications. As I said, your ham radio repeaters, you may find you've got a ham radio repeater near you, which could allow you to get extended distance. You'll have to look that up and get the channel frequency number and so on. You've got supply storage locations, which could be places for either that are a threat to you, or that are places that may be places that you can go and get supplies from near you, right? In an SHTF scenario, when everyone's gone home and they're not there. So plan with friends across town, Ham and Laura. Now, the reason I've got Laura there, is that means long range, low power. This is a communication system I've used in a lot of my prototype engineering designs for things. And it's something as well that you can use. And I'll tell you the problem, right? Your typical ham radio jobby, right? Like this. Baofeng ham radio. Your typical ham radio is going to be like, don't think you're going to get 10 miles and 5 miles and all this other stuff that they say. It's absolute nonsense, right? In a built up area, right? Maybe from mountain peak to mountain peak, yeah, from here, on this hill here, right? Standing on this hill here to that hill over there with the green thing, maybe. But when you're in your home or you're in your street or in your front street and you're trying to talk to your mate who's all the way over here, over town, forget about it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry, it's not. Not even with 5 watt of power. I'll show you what. So let's do the ruler here. We go boom, right? And if we go over to this side of town here, look, let's say you got someone who lives over here. Look, 1.3 miles. 1 mile through built up area on a ham radio is going to be a struggle. Right? It's going to be a struggle. Now, your matey boy here, right? Your friend who's maybe living here, as I said, who can give you the heads up. Look, this is like 0.18, 0.2 miles, like a quarter of a mile away. Yeah? So, yeah. So in that respect, it's doable for a ham radio. But if you've got someone that's right across town that you want to communicate with, you've got an auntie or a nan or a dad or a friend that you want to keep up to date with and to see what's going on their end and to see what's going on their estate in their neighborhood, you're not going to be able to use a ham radio. It's unlikely. However, I'll go full screen here so I can give you the heads up. There are some things that you can do, so we're going to cover that now. Ham radios, right? Let's just deal with this quickly. Now, what you don't want to do for a start is you don't want to be transmitting on more power than you need to be because you're just advertising where you are and so on, right? Second thing, use an extended battery for 2 reasons. Obviously, because your battery lasts longer. Secondly, because 3 reasons. Secondly, because it fits in the pouches better than the smaller batteries. This one just gets lost inside the pouch, the ham radio pouch. But also because with the extended battery, you get a little socket on the side there that you can charge while you're using it and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be in the base. In fact, I've made my own. I've designed my own for that. So I've got some things here I want to illustrate to you because there are some things that you can do to get extra range from your ham radios, right? Now, you'll notice that the antennas I'm using here aren't the standard antennas. These are... Can I stretch it out for you? This is a diamond antenna. It's called the SRH805S. SRH805S. Now, the reason these are good is because they're omnidirectional, so they go all the way around you, so that'd be great for your local neighborhood and so on. And they don't push out enough, too much of a tuned power, let's say high gain, so that you're not blurting out more than you need to, right? Now, what you can do is you can have a bigger antenna. Here's an example here. This is more like you can go fencing with this. Now watch out, because it'll take your eye out. Then this thing unfolds. Look at the size of it. It doesn't even fit. I mean, I don't even know how many things it is, right? Now, clearly, you're going to struggle walking around like that, right? But it's fine, because one of the things that you can do... Let me just fold this back up again, because it's unwieldy. And we don't want to have your eye out now, do we? So, but what you can do, which is a good idea, is, for example, if you're bugging out, or even if you're just in your homestead and you want to be indoors, but you want to have maximum range for your antenna, what it's worth doing... And I'll perhaps do, like I said, I will be doing a separate show to do with all things to do with ham radio communications. But one of the things I can recommend straight away is you can get one of these antenna cables. As long as you get the right SMA connector, RP, reverse polarity and stuff on both ends, you're good to go. But what it means that you can do is to replace the standard antenna with the cable, right, extension. Right, boom. In fact, it's the other way around, sorry. Boom, right. So that essentially goes into your ham radio, right? And then you could be, for example, wearing that, or that can be on the windowsill. And then out of the window, you can then have your antenna of choice. Yeah. You see? And you can just connect your now your antenna. Now your antenna look is separate from your radio. So there's things that you can do to get an advantage on range and maximize the distance, but because it becomes unwieldy and stuff, you can go for options like this as a little bit of a, you know, a measure to overcome it. Now, the other thing that you've got an option for doing, if you know what you're doing, and I will be doing a video to show you how to do all this, and I'll be selling a kit as well as part of my tactical comms kit that I've put together. If I can get this antenna cable out, let's get rid of that. Now, one of your options, just briefly, because this is a problem when people are talking about security and defenses, and communications is a massive, massive force multiplier, right? So the problem we've got is that when we are talking about distances like this, you're going to have to be realistic about how far you can get to. Now, you can get all the way over to the other town over here if you want. If you've got a friend that's halfway and you can reach your friend who lives here, for example, over here, then you can use a repeater, right? Now, the way a repeater works is you would take 2 ham radios, right? There's a bit of hokery-pokery configuration. I'll show you all how to do it. But you have 2 ham radios, and to give you a quick heads up, what you essentially end up with, I'll have a kit that will put it all together. Here's a special, now I'm a prototype engineer, electronic and robotic engineer, but this is a charging unit that I designed. It's just a circuit board, not just heat shrunk it and put a cable on the end, right? But what this allows me to do is, as I said to you, the benefit with these extended battery packs is I can keep that on charge constantly. And this is 2 amp charge. This is twice as fast charge as the standard charger that comes with it. So that can just go in a battery bank. Now what you can do is to have these 2 radios connected together with the ports. So you have in the side here is where your head socket would go. So the first thing is I would always most definitely recommend using an earpiece for your ham radios. And I'll get into this a bit more when we get more into the perimeter of your property for when it comes to defenses and security, right? But I would recommend the earpiece. I buy the little foam things that go over these as well because I find it more comfy. So, and again, you've got your push to talk. And then of course, your main cable that goes in. Now, essentially what the cable that goes into the side of your ham radio, the headset cable, is a combination of the speaker, so you can hear it, the push-to-talk button, and the microphone. So the kit that I'm going to be providing you with, what it essentially does, is it will take the microphone out of one, and this will be connected into the headphone of the other one. Okay? And then the microphone of this one is plugged into the headphone of this one. And they're on different frequencies. And what they will do is to act as a relay. So what happens is when you set it up correctly, and I'll give you a cheat sheet to do that, is you can set it up over here with your friend. So you can have your friend over here, and they have the 2 radio repeaters. And so one of them is set to the frequency that you're transmitting to, right? It goes straight out of one, yeah, next is sitting next to it, right? So you talk to this one with your ham radio, and it goes straight into this one. The speaker out here goes into the microphone in here, and this one transmits out at the same time at a different frequency. So it comes in here from you, and it beams it out of here. Exactly what you're saying goes in here and back out on a different frequency. And so the idea being is you have a different frequency for transmit and receive. And what it allows you to do is to transmit and bounce your signal through a relay. The other benefit with that is you can use more directional antennas with your ham radio for these long distances that we're talking about now for our security for a wider area this is. The relay station offers a further benefit in as much as it's more stealth. Now when I say stealth, I'm talking about radio frequency RF stealth, because there's lots of sophisticated equipment that can pick up your transmission of your ham radio, and they'll know where it's coming from. So one of the benefits of a repeater system is that you can have an antenna that like a Yagi antenna or a high gain antenna, you know, maybe like a 20 decibel antenna, which would be about maybe a 9-degree deflection angle. And it will mean that you're transmitting your signal very specifically in one direction. So it means anyone else around you can't pick up your transmission. So it means that you can transmit directly to your repeater, and your friend can transmit directly from him to the repeater with a special antenna that's very tunneled, and no one else will even know you're talking. Yeah, and it's very unlikely they're gonna, if they find any location of anything, they'll just find the location of your repeater little box that's sitting there with these two things sitting there. And this could be in a tree with a solar panel, if you know what I mean. So, the other thing we have a problem with is, like I said, the range. We can't rely on the range of our ham radios working over these distances. Cheers, my absolute lovelies Wolfpack. I do hope you've hit the like button by now. Now, I have mentioned these before, and again, I will be providing these with my own version of the firmware, with my own version of hardware with these, but these are the mesh-tastic, encrypted, long-distance communication devices. Yeah. Now, the idea of these is they use LoRa. This is why I've got here the ham radio and LoRa, right? The long range, low power. And because the chip on here can transmit encrypted messages for about 11 miles or more. And it operates on a mesh system. But the way it works is like a text messaging system. It uses Bluetooth to your smartphone. And when your smartphone connects to this, basically, right? And when you want to send a message to one of your other members that would have one of these too, right? You would have maybe 10 of these if you wanted around your town. And if you wanted to send a message to your friend, you would use your mobile phone like you would a text message, but there's a special app that comes with it, and you can send a message via that app, and it goes into here, out of the antenna here, up to 10 miles or more away, and they'll receive the encrypted message their end. Nothing to do with cell towers, nothing to do with the internet, nothing to do with Wi-Fi, nothing to do with any of that. Point to point, encrypted, stealth, undetectable, long range, low power, 18650, jobs are good 'un. If you want to be communicating over distances like that, the only way you're doing it is with either LoRa modules like that, giving updates, and of course that will pass GPS positions to your friends on the network as well, on the mesh network, so they'll know where you are if you're moving around. Your GPS coordinates is sent as part of your message to people if you choose for that to be the case strategically, right? So, don't underestimate the complexities of transmitting over vast distances across towns. Ham radios like you get these Baofangs, great as they are, they do have limitations. Don't let that catch you out. So, project your tactical supply routes, possible roadway, vehicle choke points, key infrastructure threats, and so on. Right, this is what we're looking at when we're talking about our wider area. So, just to recap then, just think about your area as a whole where you live. Just understand the pros, the cons, the threats, the opportunities, the things around you that you can use, the woodland, the rivers, the lakes that you may need to be relying on for fishing or water. If your water, don't forget, this is, as it says here, remember, this scenario assumes a grid down event. Right, so we're talking no power, no water, no internet, no cell or telephone, no nothing is rocking. You are on your own and your preps. If you haven't got provisions of water stored, you're going to be having to get it from somewhere. So what we're going to be looking at now, we're going the next level in. So now we're going into your local neighborhood. So the local neighborhood is this. So we're talking about your sort of nearest 4 or 5 streets from your house. Now, don't forget, this property here is the one I've chosen for today's scenario, SHTF scenario, right? So when we talk about your local area now, what we really care about is this road here leading into your estate in this scenario. We all live here, by the way. This is our house. And you've got this road here also into this estate, right? There's a little bit of a thing going on here. Look, there's a bit of a driveway here that sort of goes up, and you'll see that actually comes round to the back of our house inadvertently, but not really. So I don't really see that as a threat. Yeah. But certainly this wider area we need to be concerned about. We need to sort of understand who are our local residents around here that are going to be the most needy. Who are going to be the residents around here that are going to be the most gnarly. which directions are they likely to come from? What are these people behind me like here? Who are these guys, right? Do I know any of these people? Do I have a relationship with these people over the back of my property? Because, I don't know, maybe one of these properties, these white properties here gets got, right? And maybe they come over their fence into my property, yeah? So I've got to decide, if I've got limited resources, right, I need to know from a sort of immediate neighborhood area, where am I most likely to be getting my threats from and from what direction? Who are the people around here I feel I can trust? Who are the people around here I feel I can't? What are the in routes? What are the out routes? And what can our neighborhood do to help? And so on, right? The other thing that comes under the local neighborhood part of it is we're talking about also the potential need for you and me and everyone else, right, to get from here, where we live. Somehow, we need to be able to get to here, don't forget, because we're going to need the river. We're going to need to be getting water. We're going to need to do fishing. So we are going to need to be finding ways that are safe for us to be able to somehow go from home. Don't worry, we won't get lost. You'll get familiar with it. This is our home. We're not lost. This is us here, right? We need to be able to get from home, maybe down this track here, right? And then we need to come up here or whatever, right? So there's all these tricky scenarios. So with your local area, you're also looking at that too, right? You may feel like it's better to just come down your main road down here and through, right? And maybe come to this part of the river here. But these are the things you need to decide. Which way am I going to go? Which is a less gnarly route to the river, right? So when we're talking about the local neighborhood, it's these sorts of things that we're considering here, right? We're talking about things like your perimeter approach analysis, like we did. What's the main road coming into your area? What's the main roads coming in from other areas, maybe from other housing estates where they're going to want to try and rob your houses because they don't feel like they're going to see you in the morning on the way to work, like I said, right? So your local friends and family lookouts, radio comms, right? So this is where, you know, the local neighborhood you want to have, hopefully, right? You want to be having maybe somebody that, like I say, maybe someone that's over here or something that can actually tell you if they see someone going down this road. Because don't forget, this is the only road into our house, is this one. Yeah? This is the one that leads up to our cul-de-sac. And then this is our house here. You see? So what ideally we could do within our local neighborhood is to sort of somebody who can see and give us the heads up if someone starts coming up our road. I mean, this could be somebody who maybe lives here on the corner, right? And again, we would have a ham radio for them so that they could let us know if it's hitting the fan, yeah? So the things we need to consider as part of the local neighborhood. So this is before we were, just to distinguish, we were wider area before, where we're looking at the town as a whole and just your intel, you know, your local radio stations, your local supplies and areas, right? So now we're local neighborhood. We care more about the sort of local 4 or 5 streets around us, right? So your neighbor lookout syndicates, right? Like I said, I've got a guy over the road here who his house is what would be the equivalent here? I don't know. I suppose his house would be like here, right? Looking down this road, right? Oh, sorry. His house would be here looking down this road, right? It'd help if we were looking here. Sorry. His house... Right, hold on, let's start again. Sorry, I was on the wrong page, wrong screen. So this is our house here, to refamiliarize. This is our cul-de-sac, right? This is our house. So a good example would be this house here, yeah? If we spin around this way, this house here has got perfect view, look, down the road. So this property here has got such a great vantage point coming up. Anyone coming up this road is perfect. So when we're talking about things like the neighbor lookout syndicates, it's worth being reasonably strategic about who you're approaching or who you're making friends with or whatever to be. And of course, don't forget, you're going to be offering protection and look out for them too. So it's a two-way thing, right? So you've also may have things nearby, neighbours up the road who have got dogs that always bark when people are walking by. So get to learn those noises because they'll become even more apparent and useful at night when you're trying to figure out if people approaching from a certain distance. Yeah. So drone surveillance, right? So what we are kind of now at a point, right, where in the grand scheme of the area that we're trying to cover, in terms of the area that we're trying to observe as our threats coming in from each of these angles and directions, we are kind of at a point now where we're a little bit beyond the realm of with like binoculars or whatever. We're not close protection yet, but we need to get a heads up of where's coming from where. And there's lots of ways we can do that. Now, as an example, with that distance down the end of the road I just showed you, there are things that you can do. And again, this is another thing that will be part of the tactical comms kit that I'll be providing as part of Sigma Prepper, right? Now, this doesn't look like it, but this is a surveillance bug, right? Where's my disaster radio? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll whip the old 18650 out of that. I can't afford more than one. Although, thank you, Robert McNamara, for the super chat. Really appreciate it, my man. Maybe I should get an extra 18650. So the idea with this, right? I mean, this is my own design, so you have to bear with it, right? So this is an 18650. Bosch, she is in. That is now little microphone there. Yeah, that's all it is. Little antenna wire, right? And this thing is transmitting on ham radio. Yeah. So the idea with it is they transmit on on FM radio. So like your normal FM radio, right? Good for a couple of 100 meters, maybe 200-300 yards, right out in the open. Now the benefit of that, you see, and I'll show you what it actually looks like. So this is as small as the circuit board is, and it runs on anything from about 4 to 7 volts. Now the voltage will depend on the range you get, so the way I'm going to configure it will be a little bit juicy, and it will run off 18650, but it'll last a couple of days. A couple of days on an 18650, you should just replace the battery every couple of days. But you can pop this little chap down the end of your street, right? And believe me, you're going to know when people are walking up the road because you're going to hear them. And the benefit of that is you can have your ham radio, because the ham radios obviously support the FM radio feature, which is a great thing about the Bayer things, right? And the other great thing is that if you keep it on the FM radio mode, if you receive a transmission from somebody you've got your earpiece, don't forget, so you're just walking around all the time, you're just listening, and you're just listening to the surveillance bug that's up the road transmitting on FM radio, right, that you've tuned into. But if anybody transmits to you because, like, I don't know, maybe your partner or something in the house has seen someone rustling in the back garden and they're going, someone in the back garden, it will automatically cut the way the Bayer things work is it cuts out the FM radio, switches straight to the person talking to you, right? So it means that you can be rocking about while you're doing your patrols and stuff, right? And you'll be able to hear just with any FM radio if anyone's coming up the street. Right, so imagine a couple 100 yards, you could put your surveillance bug down here in this bush. Right? So bear in mind, your house might be up the end of the road here. Yeah? It's this one. But that surveillance bug is easy good enough to be able to maybe put it on the top of that wall there, right? On the bush. And you're going to be hearing them before they even know where you are. You're going to hear them coming up the road. And don't forget, you can set a couple of these up. The tactical comms kit that I'll be providing on my survival gear page on the website will be, you'll have 2 of these on different frequencies, and you can program them yourself, right? So you can have like 2 different bugs on 2 different frequencies, and then maybe one of your other members of the team can be listening to that one. So the other thing we've got is things like drone surveillance, right? Now don't laugh at it, because it is a thing. Now, I used to run a video and aerial photography business way back. I used to design pan and tilt systems, right? So I did more designing of stuff for the drone industry than drone flying. When the drone flying I did, it was more video production, professional stuff, right? So things like these sort of FPV, first-person view drones are good. You know, you've got a small camera on the front, look, right? And you can bomb about, and you can be checking stuff out. You've got a video transmitter. There's the antenna at the back, look. There's a small video transmitter in there, battery pack on there, good for about 10-minute flight time if you're lucky. If you're not flying around like a total maniac. So with about an 8-minute flight time, you know, you can get out quite far with this. If you imagine about 70 miles an hour top speed, you wouldn't really necessarily want to rock about at top speed. But the point is that you can do a good bit of surveillance up the road. You can check out what's going up the road and stuff, yeah? See any threats that are coming in from a reasonable good distance, and that would cover the wider area, I would say, in terms of like subject to the size of your drone, obviously, right? But in terms of our little area here that we live in, let's reorient so we know where we are. Look, this is our house here in our little cul-de-sac, right? So if I was taking off, I can take off from a garden there, right? Obviously, as I said, this isn't my house. It's just an example house I'm using for today's show, right? But I can take off from there, and you can easily... I mean, I've flown like 6 kilometers with that one. I mean, literally there and back straight away, right? But, 4 kilometers. About 2.5 each way. So in terms of 2.5 kilometers, it's about 1.8 miles. So, you know, with a drone like that, you can get... Look, you can get pretty far. Let's call it 2.5 kilometers. I've had out of that before. So we want to be maybe 1.6. Look at that. Oh, Kaza, what an absolute babe. Thank you so very much. How super generous is that? Thanks for your dedicated hard work, Andy. Thank you for your support. Kaza. Because without you, I wouldn't even be able to do this show, would I? YouTube holding this channel back the way it is, I'm never going to get any return on investment I was spent on this channel. So thank you so very much, Kaza. I really appreciate that. That's super kind. So as we just saw, we're going all the way from our little town here, yeah? We could get all the way out to here with that drone to see what's going on if we wanted to. So don't underestimate the force multiplier of drones nowadays, and you can get these things that virtually fly themselves. Now mine's a custom build, so I'm not going to have problems with, you know, it getting shut down with mainstream stuff like DJI, right? But that is a consideration. But from a wider area point of view, a drone's it's a pretty good tool. The other thing as well I would also mention, now I just rigged this up. This is the benefit of having a son, right? Don't write off things like a little radio control car with a little camera on it as well, right? Yeah. This is again one of my own little designs. It's just something I threw together just to give you an example. I haven't actually put a video transmitter in there, but I have done before and it works quite well. But this is a small version. I've got a bigger version as my son's as well that I will do as a proper FPV rover surveillance vehicle, which will be able to have a pretty good range, maybe about a mile range I'm looking at. And so to be able to drive quite far away with a little camera that's live feeding back to you with your VR goggles on, right? And you can see, you could drive down the road, right? So you can, it's quite easy to do. You can buy little wireless video transmitters that are good for doing that. Super easy, yeah? So, you know, really appreciate the super chats. Thank you, Kazo and Robert McNamara today. Such a great bunch. So let's get back to it then. Now, you got things like the telescope binoculars. I mean, to be honest, when I have something like this that just sits on my shelf, and it does go in my bushcraft bag now and again. It's not amazing. It's a really low budget one. It's something that I really need to buy myself that's good. But having a decent monocular or something like that, you know. Do I get a massive big eye when I do that or not? Having a massive monocular, I quite like monocular, but they take up less room and you only just go boom and you're in, right? So having something like that, night vision particularly, subject to budget, of course. Everybody has a different budget. I made my own night vision using a little camera here that I got for another project. This is called a night owl camera. It's got a really big lens on the front of this. Now this camera is specifically designed for like super low light capability. It's pretty amazing actually. So I made something with this where it literally, this TV camera was just mounted. Let's pop it on the main, let's have a better view of this. So I bought this little TV monitor that cost me something like, I don't know, it was like 10 pounds from AliExpress like years and years ago, right? I've done a few modifications to it and got my own little wires coming out here because I've put my own circuit board in, don't ask. But this little camera, you see, I just had on here, right? And then you can just walk around, and I could literally see like night vision perfect with it. And I've got an infrared torch, and it's amazing, right? It is literally like daylight. This thing's crazy, the low light ability. And so that was my super poor man's version of night vision, right? Look at Connie Richards, what a main babe. So thank you very much. Sigma Prepper, you are an amazing human. You give of yourself unselfishly. We can all learn from you. Thank you for all you do. We appreciate you so much. What an absolute darling. Thank you so much, Connie. Gonna make me cry. Oh dear, what an absolute babe. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. So yeah, long range CCTV wireless, not IP cameras. Not IP cameras, right. This is super important. This is a force multiplier, right? Now, let's refamiliarize. This is our house here, don't forget. Here we are. This is our little house in our little cul-de-sac. Now, video cameras. Wireless video cameras. A lot of people say to me like, oh, I've got these wireless video. No, they're not wireless. They are IP cameras. They're different. They use the wireless internet. And they go all the way out to the internet and all the way back to you for you to see it. So the minute the internet goes down, you have no CCTV. You have no CCTV with no internet. Try it. Pull the plug out. See how far you get. Right? So, what I recommend is these are not IP cameras, but they are wireless cameras. These are called ANRAN. ANRAN. A-N. Okay. Now, all you get on the end of this, apart from a little reset button, but all you get on the end of this is a little 12 volt DC jack. 12 volt is all this thing needs. Now the difference with this from an IP camera, instead of it sending it across the internet protocol, as in it uses the internet protocol to send it across the internet, so it means you're reliant on your router, your Wi-Fi and all that working, right? The difference with these type ones is they come with their own NVR, right? And or their DVR, which is the digital video recorder that comes with it. Now in this instance, it's one that comes with 4, 5, 6 cameras, and the box itself has its own antennas on, and it's just directly receives it from there, and then that box you plug your TV into and you can view it. And if you choose to, you can plug that into your LAN port so you can give it the internet to remote view it. But these aren't susceptible to the internet going down because they transmit directly from here to your main box that you get with this set. So what it means is that you can have a battery pack. I mean, obviously I have off-grid solar systems, so we are assuming, as why I made reference to the advanced principles of prepping and grid down scenario, right, where we talk about all the different options you've got for off-grid solar power, right? Or just off-grid power generally. Now, if you've got a decent battery pack, I've got a lithium phosphate pack over there that I'd show you, but basically I would just plug this in and I can just strap this to a tree. Right, now the other thing to look out for is try and get ones that have the SMA connectors. So not some horrible molded nasty antenna plastic thing, but one that's actually got SMA connectors on them. The benefit of SMA connectors is you can get a whole wealth of optional antennas that can give you increased range, directional attenuation, and so on, right? So try and look for ones that have got, proper removable antennas, and then you'll be able to buy optional extra antennas that can get you much greater distance, perhaps even directional antennas, right? So the benefit with this is good for a good couple of 100 meters, believe it or not, open wide, maybe 50 meters down your street. So don't underestimate the power of that, because what it allows you to do is, let's say for example, we're here, right, and you're inside there, you've got your main base station unit, you've got your antenna good enough so it can be seen, right? So for example, what you could maybe do is, like I say, even up the road here, where you've got that, where you've got the little radio bug that I showed you, you can use, maybe in this bush here, and even get permission from maybe this person who lives here, right? Because it's to protect him as well, don't forget. Give him a ham radio. He can probably see people coming up this street here. Tell him that you'll put a camera here and you'll keep your eye on it. It's got night vision, don't forget. And it means that maybe once a month, once every other day, you just take a walk down the street to this guy's house. You get in the back of the hedge here, yeah, where you've got your little battery pack, and you've got your camera, and you just got that hidden on the wall there in the bush, yeah. But your home from here, right, that's good enough to reach from there, easy peasy. If you're in this top window here in your bedroom and you've got your monitor checking it, yeah, using your off-grid power, you can be looking down this road yourself, yeah, with the camera. You see? Now, if that was an IP camera that you buy, like, that use the internet, forget about it. It's not going to do anything. But with a small 12-volt pack, yeah, now during the night, bear in mind, you have the infrared lamps. These have got infrared array, infrared LEDs that go around the rim and the camera's in the middle, right? So at night time, it will illuminate and it will take a little bit more juice, maybe a couple of watts instead of maybe 1 watt, maybe 3 watts. So you'll need a decent sized battery pack, but even if you've got a spare car battery sitting about, whack it in that bush, get your camera on there, strap it to a tree, get creative, you know what I mean, right? And get a heads up yourself. You could even get them over here, look, in your bushes here, if you're not sure about maybe someone coming in from your back garden, right? Yeah, well, there you go. Get one in there, right? So it's important to give yourself options when it comes to things like that, right? So when we're talking about long-range CCTV, wireless, not IP cameras, you know what Guam and you know what I'm talking about, right? Because there's a big difference. And, you know, with the right antennas, you can do quite well with those little, you know, there's these sort of like wireless video cameras. I've got 4 running on my property, but I've got a 2 spare ready to go where they need to go, if you know what I mean, when it's ready to go. Yeah. So remember, right, so this is about using your local neighborhood knowledge. This is like local neighbors. This is your very closest 4 or 5 streets around you, right? This is really important. This is where all the action's going to happen. So remember, handheld RAM radio devices have a usable range of only a few miles. Investigate alternative communication options if needed. So your immediate neighbors now is where we're going to be getting, you'll notice the color at the top here is getting oranger and redder as we go, right? Because we're getting closer and closer in. The threat is becoming very close to us now. So don't forget, this is our house here. Yeah. So we're just looking at these immediate neighbors around us. So our immediate next door neighbors, and those that we live next door to, have relationships with, see in the mornings, maybe our kids play together, yeah, our children play together and things. So this is what we're looking at now, is the immediate neighbors. So again, just for familiarity, this is our town, this is where we live, this is our house here that we live in, as the example here. So what we're going to be looking here is, of course, we've got this immediate neighbor here, they've got a conservatory there, we have view here from that window of their garden. So what we can be looking to do here is to say, well, what security can we offer our neighbors, right? What advantages can we offer our neighbors as a way of, you know, offering them an opportunity to watch out on us too? So you're almost creating an on-the-fly neighborhood watch scheme, right? But it's going to involve you making sure you have a way of communicating with them. You're not going to be able to send them a text message. Don't forget, there's no cell towers in this scenario. There's a grid down scenario. So there's no cell towers. There's no sending someone a text message. It's ham radios or nothing. Yeah? So what you need to be doing is to make sure that these people, as I said, who are like close to you here, right? People who can see in your garden, your immediate neighbor here, you need them to have a ham radio. If they haven't got their own, make sure you make provisions to buy one for them. You can get a pack of 3 of these now for about $50. It's craziness. Can you afford not to have one or 3? I would suggest not. Because believe me, when all your neighbours are panicking and they're all anxious and they're all scared and they're hearing those windows break down the road, they're hearing those screams and them cries coming from down the road as it's coming more and more up the road towards you each night, believe me, your neighbours are going to be taking anything from you you've got to give them to help them. They're not going to be resistant. They're not going to be resistant, right? Particularly if you're saying to them, hey, buddy boy, you know, I know we had that disagreement last year over that thing with our barbecue smoke going, yeah, right? But whatever, yeah, it's just, I can see your garden from here. We have a patrol running, which we'll get into in a minute. We have a patrol running where we're always on watch all the time on patrol. And we'll make sure that if we see anyone in your garden, here's a ham radio, keep it on all the time. Here's a charger. Here's a battery that will stay with it. Let us know when a battery runs out. I'll give you a new one. Right? Now what I do, just as a heads up, right? If you're going to have a ham radio for your neighbours, for example, don't give them a charger. This is an option, but what I recommend instead is to give them, and again, this is why I say about having the extended batteries, right? Is you need to be able to have, if you have the extended batteries, what you do is you can still charge these batteries on their own in the chargers. So you can have a bunch of these, you know, they're very cheap, inexpensive, yeah? So this is a 3,800 milliamp hour pack, 3.8 amp hour pack. Now, if you have a bunch of these spare, what you'll be doing is you'll be meeting your neighbor, checking their battery level and let him know when your battery gets to 1 bar, let me know. What are you going to do? You're going to take his battery out and you're just going to go bang with a new battery and he's good to go. You're not going to mess around taking it off him and charging it for 3 hours and then giving it back to him, are you? Because it means he hasn't got a ham radio for 3 hours. So you need to have a bunch of spare batteries. You need to be quick release. You need to be bish bosh bash. There's your battery. There's a new one. Thank you very much. Turn it back on. You're back in business. Right? And you have a bunch of batteries on rotation. So there's no reason for them to not have their ham radio at all times. Okay? I've seen some pretty massive prepper channels who don't consider the most obvious. I ain't even going to get into it, but no one talks about this. It's like they've never actually thought it through in their life. It's quite amazing and embarrassing for the preparedness community when you've got people like 1 million subscribers who don't think through the most obvious of things properly and tell people to do the most ludicrous things that are just not thought through. So like I say, buy a bunch of spare batteries, clonk clonk, switch out the batteries, right? Make sure they're familiar with it. This will be a separate video I will do. There is a way you can lock the keypad. You do not want your neighbor to mess up the programming accidentally. So you need to make sure it's programmed. You've got channel numbers in. They know how to use it. Pushy, pushy button. You've got the keypad locked so they can't accidentally mess it up, right? Human error is going to get you and your family into trouble every time. What you need to make sure is it's not your human error, yeah? And do what you can to limit the possibility of someone else's human error being a proxy threat to you, right? Or being a threat to you by proxy. So by having these dudes set up with ham radios that they know how to use, if they've got their own, even better. If they haven't, buy some for them, right? Get those relationships down, understand where the threats in their garden is, where the entry points in their garden is, because it will be from their garden to your garden, right? So when we're talking about things like your local immediate neighbors, we're considering stuff like this, right? So we've got wireless CCTV, PR motion sensors. So we want to be slightly broader than our local perimeter of our property, because that's next, yeah, is our actual property perimeter, which we're getting to next, right? We'll get even more orangier when we get to that, right? So we've got wireless CCTV here again, because of course, and PIR motion sensors. So, you know, with our scenario here and our situation, it would make sense, obviously, to have, you know, cameras on our property as well as down the road. If we can get some ones that can reach down the road and we can get the heads up as sort of things that are coming up the street, yeah, from the main entrance and exit routes, right? We're already a choke point here because it's a cul-de-sac, right? And the problem is that when if somebody turns up here, this is the place they're going to turn around. So you could end up with a lot of traffic here inadvertently, right? So to have cameras set up here so you don't have to keep going outside, or if you've got a camera at the back here, checking out the woodland here, and as well with night vision technology with the cameras, you know, with floodlights and stuff, is going to give you an advantage to see them at night coming in from other areas, right? So your CCTV is important. Now, the other option you've got as well when it comes to, you'll notice here I've got listed the PIR motion sensors as well. Now, there's some really easy stuff, like really, really cheap, right? So check this out. This is the sort of thing like when I was living in Thailand, right? They have these things in 7-Elevens, yeah? And they're like a little PIR sensor, yeah? Just run on three AAAs, right? 3 AAA batteries. I use Eneloops and a recharger that I can run off my 12-volt battery bank. And then you just got the main receiver, which has got some AA's in it, right? Ideally, I'd rather have something with 18650s, but this is a receiver, this is a transmitter. This is designed to be a wireless doorbell. But it happens to have a whole million selection of different tones, but you can also have it where instead of having ringtone, it can just light this thing here flashes. Yeah. You're probably not going to make it do it for me. It's bloody loud when it does it anyway. But basically the idea is that this has got a pretty good range, right? This is a good, again, 50-meter range I reckon you could get out of this. So you can have this. This is self-contained. It's got battery in it, right? And every time it's triggered, it will just be like, burr, 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 that kind of thing. Or beep, beep, beep. Or you can turn off the sound and just have the illumination happen. Yeah, and you know, if someone watching that, the minute, and you can buy these for about $30 for a pack of two sensors, right? And one receiver. So you can have those positioned. You can easily get away with them, right? Being, because you see the size of it, right? And again, you can just strap that to a tree, right? With a Velcro strap, job done, right? And then the idea being is you could have that even on the other side of this fence, on this bush. You could hide it in this bush, or over here with your next door neighbour's property, looking over in their garden, right? You could even put it at the front of your, you know, we could put it at the front of here as well, on the front of the drive, right? On the wall. Just literally sit it on the front wall. Yeah, you can buy these for $30 on AliExpress, right? Front wall. And again, my security, tactical security kit, which is different from the tactical comms kit, is going to have things like this in it, right? As well as things like the surveillance bugs, FM surveillance microphone bugs as well, to use for audible surveillance up the street, right? So these wireless PIR motion sensors can be a pretty good force multiplier, and you can set them up anywhere, and you can take these out for bugging out as well if you wanted to, because they're just battery operated and they don't require any main system to be able to operate, right? They're just literally self-contained. So that's a big thing. To be knowing when somebody even gets near your property is the key, right? We need the biggest heads up we can get before they even get near you, because if you've got 3 people, right, we'll get into this more on the next one, but if you've got 3 people, let's say as an example, in your property, then you're going to need to work out how you utilize those bodies and those people in a way that is, you know, strategically, you know, bespoke to the threat that's coming in. If that's people coming and roaming around in your back garden, to be honest, you've already failed. You don't want to get anyone to be anywhere near your property. You need to be, you know, approaching that threat head on. So external perimeter patrols, right? So this is where radio comms again is important, right? You've got somebody inside your house and they're going to be watching the TV screen for the CCTV. You're going to be having your own ham radio with your earpiece in. You're going to have the FM bug down the road maybe that you're listening to, right? But maybe you've got somebody indoors that's doing that, right? Now, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. External perimeter patrols is that you ideally need to be meeting that threat at your front gate. You don't be waiting for someone to knock on your door, ring on your doorbell, because the minute they're doing that, they're already touching your property. They're already there. This is about you standing at the front of your house and you are on rotation. So if there's 3 of you, for example, it means you've got 24 hours a day, 3 people, 24 divided by 3 is 8. That means you're on an 8-hour patrol, yeah, with 2 people on patrol with 1 person sleeping at all times, right? So no, you never have a time where all 3 of you are sleeping. You have 8 hours sleep. While you're sleeping, the other 2 people are awake on patrol. One's indoors, checking out the monitors, checking out whatever, and the other person's on the front gate, is standing out here waiting. And of course, the person indoors who's also awake is watching the TV monitors. So if he sees something or she sees something coming in from the back garden, on the ham radio, Andy, someone round the back, I come from this front point here. Obviously, the third person gets woken up. There's someone on our property. Whoop, 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 right? You've now got 3 people. I'm already on the front. I'm now approaching these people. I'm approaching that threat either up against this fence here if it's next door, that's someone's coming through next door, or if it's maybe a trigger here and they're just coming up this road. I'm going to make sure I'm coming out as far away from my front of the house as possible, yeah, to meet that threat. Carrying whatever you're carrying, we'll get into that in a minute. But you don't want to be letting them walk up to your door. So you need to be on patrol 24/7. There's going to be no point in time, yeah, where you're not going to be there to meet them as they arrive, not when waiting for them to knock your door and you have to open a door and then there's like 10 dudes outside. That's not how it goes down, right? And so that person indoors is operating the surveillance and the tactical surveillance in terms of monitoring all the things in all the directions, so that the person that's outside on patrol can be told via your ham radio where the threat's coming from, so that then you can swarm in it. And don't forget, that's going to include what? It's going to include your neighbor. Neighbor, wakey wakey, we've got trouble, right? Because just as much as if somebody comes round to my house, or our house in this case, right, to rob us, we're going to want our neighbors to help us to get rid of them, right? And equally, if our neighbor is getting robbed, either this chap here or maybe our other next door neighbor here, if they're getting robbed, the agreement's got to be that I'm going to come over and help them. And equally, they'll come over and help me, because they're going to be in on it anyway. That's the whole point of this immediate neighbors principle, is that we need to make sure that these guys are on our side and we're on their side, and they understand that the benefit is as much for them as it is for us. Right, hell, you're even supplying them the ham radio, right? They don't even have to buy their ham radio. You're going to know someone's on their property probably before they do. And you'll be able to tell them via ham radio straight away, instantly. And again, by making sure you got something like your earpiece, use the earpiece rather than just talking in it, right? It also means, because you get the push to talk with the microphone here, when you're pushing it, you're able to speak very close to it and not obstruct your thing. Well, the other benefit to it is it means that you can maintain your ham radio like this. You can always tell when someone doesn't have a clue what they're doing, as I see lots of preppers do this, and they talk like that. Like they think it looks cool like this, but it's not. These antennas are polarized. Meaning, and this is a linearly polarized, I don't want to get too technical here, but this is a linearly polarized antenna, meaning the radio wave propagates in a linear fashion. Yeah. Now the problem is, as in the wave goes up and down like this from this antenna. So the other person, the other end, yeah, will need that wave to be the same, right? So if I think I look cool because I'm doing all this business, because I think I'm a cool prepper, look at me on my ham radio, giving it all. No. The problem with that is that you have a mismatch of polarity on the antennas, and that loses you 9 decibels. Yes, 9 decibels. So don't be a newbie. Don't be a newbie. Despite how many subs you've got, right? So bear in mind, to get best range, make sure that your antennas are always pointing up. One way to do that, don't forget, is what? Use an earpiece. Why? Because it means this is on your buckle and it's always straight up. The polarization of the antennas are not mismatched. You ain't going to lose your 9 decibel of attenuation of your signal. Just so you know. So annoying when I see people doing that. So keep your antennas straight, give you maximum range. They're polarized antennas. They both need to be parallel to each other, right? So let's get back to the slids. I am babbling, aren't I? But I hope that everything let us know in the chat if this is too much or whatever, or it's boring or whatever, or I'm getting into too many details. But no one else seems to do this, so I thought I might as well. So let us know in the chat how you feeling so far. Don't forget to vote as well in a live poll. If you've just joined us, of course, we are running a live poll. That's why I like to do these shows live. It's completely unrehearsed, and you just literally make the slides and just go for it, right? But what is your greatest concern when it comes to security and defenses during, it hitting the fan scenario? Let us know live in a chat. What's your biggest concern of a homesteading scenario with an SHTF? Is it either A, the house burning down, or some form of damage, forcing you to have to bug out somewhere? Is it being overpowered by gangs? Is it maybe friends and family coming knocking? You're not quite sure how to say no, how to say go away? Or is it a little bit like that with a desperate mother begging? Maybe there's a woman at your door clutching with a baby crying, saying, please help me, I'm starving. Yeah. So let us know which are the ones out of them that are making you feel the most uncomfortable when you think it through. Crypto Sam, excellent granularity, perfect in my opinion. Thank you very much. That's cool. You're doing a great job, sir. Why, thank you, my all-American prepper. It's great, says Miss Firm. Okay, cool. Don't be a newbie. No, don't be a newbie. So We love you, babbling Andy. Oh dear, thank you. Right, so what else we got to get through? So motion activated lights, obvious stuff, right? In terms of you can pick them up on Amazon for like 30 quid for a pack of 5 or something ludicrous, right? The ones I've got are pretty cool. I think it's 30 quid for a pack of 2, but they're pretty good. When I lived in Thailand, actually, that was when solar sort of was really starting becoming things, solar garden lights, and it was like one LED that would like last for an hour and then that's it, right? But modern day today is pretty good going, right? So definitely, and of course it solves the problem of not having to have an expensive off-grid system. You can just use your motion activated lights, solar powered ones, right? Night vision, great, because to see people sneaking around in your bushes is pretty cool. Thermal vision, okay, but you'd be spending a lot of money to get anything with more than about a 5 meter, 2 meter range, right? So yeah, agreed. Neighborhood lookouts, we've covered that in terms of your radio comms with your nearest neighbors. Do get yourself a couple of extra if unlike me you have a budget. Please get yourself a couple of extra, more for the reasons that you can't think of than the reasons you can. Of course, get yourself some spare batteries, as I said as well, so you can go chung chung and just swap out your neighbor's batteries, your kids' batteries, or whatever, right? Chung chung. And let them know as well to let you know when it gets to 1 bar. Don't let it get it to the point where it's turning itself off, because you're gonna be affecting the capacity of the battery, right? You're gonna be spanking it. You shouldn't really take it below about 80% of the charge of a battery, really, to be doing long-term damage. You should get about 400 or 500 recharges. The other thing to tell you as well, don't leave these things sitting in a charger. That's another thing I see as well when I watch these guys who call themselves preppers on their big old YouTube channels, and I see their ham radios sitting in their charging base in the background with the light on. 12 months you get on your battery, 12 months. If you leave this battery in a charger for more than 12 months, you're down to something like 15% of its capacity. Do not leave these things on charge. It sits there constantly topping up the battery. You're causing a chemical reaction on a constant basis, meaning that you are reducing the life cycle of it to 12 months. So by the time you go to use it, you'll turn it on. It'll look like it's full bar. Within 15 minutes, it's like... So do yourself a favor, get yourself some extra battery packs. Take your battery packs out when you're leaving them in storage. Do not leave them in your charger ad infinitum. They don't like it. The batteries don't last long if you leave them in the chargers. Distant warning sounds, as I said. Neighbours' dogs, maybe you've got some things up the road. Alternatively, don't forget about what I said about having things like the FM radio surveillance bugs are perfect for your immediate neighbours. Great range just down the road, just to pick up some audio to hear someone walking down. And just, if you have to, go up there with some bottle glass, scatter that around, and that'll help you to hear them coming, right? So your bins, your tools used to break in. So this is important, right? Your obstacles, gravel, scrap metal, noisy stuff, right? Easy target for bins and tools to break in. So what I'm talking about there is where you're in a situation, and I see it all the time, right? I mean, to be honest, our place isn't perfect, right? I mean, but you see people having run a security company for many years, right? And home and office security. The ways that people get in, I can tell you now, because I've seen a lot I've visited and done quotations and surveys on lots of properties who, unlike most people who I preferred, who would buy an alarm, investing in an alarm system, a security system, before they get broken into, most people call me up, or used to back then, after they've been broken into and they want a security system, right? So you get to see a lot of how it works, how they do it, and what's most typical. And yeah, it's pretty much opportunist stuff, because people know if they go equipped, then if the police pull them over on the street and they're walking up the street with a hoodie and they get pulled over and, you know, they check their pockets and they've got pliers and bolt croppers and goodness knows what, that's called going equipped in the UK in terms of legal standing on that, right? And that's the assumption that you're going to burgle somewhere. So what they'll do is they'll turn up to your property and they'll just have a look around your garden. There'll be a shed and they'll find like a step ladder in the shed, and they'll find a spade they can use to get your patio door open or something like this. Or they'll find a little in your conservatory here that's not particularly secure. There's probably a little pot in there with a bunch of screwdrivers. So now they can just start hammering away at your door as much time as they want, hidden in a little corner, and you've given them all the tools they needed, right? You might have a situation where you've got things like your wheelie bins or some bins sitting around outside that people can use to jump over your fence. Like here, look, you can just see them down the side of the fence, right? These sorts of things, right? You could always, as well, if you felt like you had a threat here, there was one particular place that was likely for people to come in from the neighbour's garden into yours, right? This is where I'm saying you can have things like noisy stuff like scrap metal, like old bikes and like old prams and shopping trolleys or whatever, you know what I mean? And just, you can make it very difficult to people to get into your property. But you also need to make sure you're not making it difficult for you to get as an exit from your property as well if you need to, right? So do bear all that in mind when it comes to immediate neighbours. You need to be figuring out, you might better, you and your neighbours, for example, there's no reason why not here in your cul-de-sac scenario, right? There's no reason why you couldn't coordinate with your neighbours and just park your cars at the end of this road. All of you park your cars at the end of this road, put your wheelie bins at the end of this road, and you just make a blockade. It's like, no, you ain't coming up here. No one's coming up our road. Easy peasy, right? And you make sure you maintain that threat at one point. At this point, happens to be the furthest distance from our house here, right? But it benefits the whole street, doesn't it? If you just make it difficult for people to want to come down here, they'll just carry on up the road around here, right? Governments use this technology and this like clever architecture all the time to make people want to walk more one way than another. That's how it's engineered like that, right? There's all sorts of techniques involved. So remember, capping off on immediate neighbor perimeter, right? This is important coming up because we're getting pretty gnarly now. So remember, enlisting the help of your neighbors can be a great force multiplier. Make an effort to strengthen your relationships and be sure to buy an extra ham radio for them too, as I'm sure I've exhausted that entire principle with you over the last 20 minutes or something. Rebecca Mardis, great to see you in the house. So yeah, she's saying we had someone stop by a house and ask if we wanted to get rid of a basketball pole and hoop, and the only way he could have known it was in our backyard was he snooped via a drone. Like it. There you go. Thank you for showing. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate you. All the love in there. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you everyone for being with me. What is a Discord link so I can sign up as soon as chat is over? It's in the description of this video, but you'll also find it on the Sigma Prepper website with all the links are on there. So you can always jump over to the sigmaprepper.com website. It looks like this. Yes, with the fire burning. Don't end up around a campfire eating squirrels on sticks. Instead, get prepared with Sigma Prepper. So jump on there and you'll scroll down the homepage. There's one here actually, Prepping Community. Look, you can just click on that. But all my socials are at the bottom as well. Little links down there. Actually, it's behind me, innit? Yeah. But you've got your links down there. But of course, in the description of this video as well, you'll find all the links to ways you can follow us. And again, a great community there over there on Discord. And in fact, look at that. She's already on it in the chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Emmanuel Bravo in the house. As I say, use a fence border with bear traps. They won't get far. But you have to worry about your own team members, your neighbours as well, getting copped by it. Yeah, doing yourself in can be a thing as well, right? So bear that in mind. I know what you're saying about bear traps, but... So yeah, do try and form some good relationships with your immediate neighbours because they will be the ones watching out for you. Now... we're properly getting into it now with the property perimeter. Now, really, and you can see we're getting orange, right? We're getting orange. So the property perimeter, if I can even say it, your property perimeter is what we've just started getting into on the last one, and we're building up to with our neighbours, with our road leading up to our estate and things like this. This is our own property border now. So at this point in time, we're going to be worrying about what's going to be going on once they have entered our property boundary. The section after this section is what happens when they're up against your property coming in your home. So we're very close to absolute gnarly scenario here. Right, but we still got a lot to get through because this is where it gets interesting, as you would agree. So this is our house here, just to re-familiarise for those that are joining us new. It's just a random house in the middle of a part of the country that's nowhere near where I live. I've got no idea where, you know, anyone who lives here. It was just somewhere that I found last week when I was looking for a location to use as a scenario for this show for you fine people. So it had all the ingredients, as I said. We needed somewhere that had a river nearby to give us somewhere to go and maybe go fishing, get some drinking water and filter in an event where we've got no water, no power, no grid, no nothing is our scenario for today, yeah? And so this is our property, and we need to consider how we may need to leave our property to hunting grounds, to foraging grounds, to supply grounds, to water collection, right? So what are you going to use? An electric bike? Right, you got to start figuring out what your transport's going to be. You're not going to be driving from your house down the road to the river, are you? So all the time you're walking, you're in Dodge. So bear all that in mind. So what we're going to be looking at now is specifically your property boundary and what we need to know and what our options are for keeping this bidney safe, because we are right up against it now. So the way we're going to break this down, right? Again, similar sort of looking thing with the wireless CCTV, PIR motion sensors, except now what we're more focused in is cameras that are focused on our own property, on our own perimeter from within looking out, right? And so on. Solid locks and doors and windows, marine ply, sheet and supply, secure from damage. So one thing you need to consider is, of course, where people get angry and where people start throwing stuff, banging stuff, beating stuff, you have to assume the possibility of damage of your property. And so you're better off making sure you've got some marine plywood and some machine screws and a cordless driver, right? And if you're posh, right? I know posh isn't really an American term. It stands for port out, starboard home, which is the posh tickets. The tickets for the rich people used to be on the boats. You'd go out on the port and come home on the starboard, right? Port out, starboard home. But anyway, posh. If you're posh, you may have already pre-cut marine plywood that's already fits your windows, yeah? And they're stored in your garage. Some people would suggest doing your wood from the inside, not the outside, but I would disagree. Because you need to protect the glass as well. The other way of looking at it is that you have it on the inside and the glass can still get smashed and then you got the wood behind it, but it doesn't make much sense if you can protect it from the first place. And it's no more easy. It's actually easier to like ram into a board to push it in than it is if you've put the board on the outside over your frame and screwed it into your frame. If you try and push that, it's just going to push against the entire rigid structure of the frame and the house and the lintel, right? Transoms, mullions that make up the window. Do you know what I mean? So the only downside to mounting them from the outside, your wood boards to protect your downstairs, for example, would be if they were to unscrew them. But I mean, that's where you get the Torx heads or whatever. I mean, it's still much more difficult trying to lever that off than to just bang it in. So the point being is that a marine ply as well, because a couple of rainstorms and your plywood will fall apart. But the problem you've got to bear in mind, if you're going to marine ply sheet your windows, you're not going to be able to see out. So you're not going to see anything and you won't hear anything going on outside as well. So do bear that in mind, right? But if you do get a window popped out, you are going to need to be able to repair it yourself or make good yourself at the very least. And that could include even your front door. So exaggerated activity, numbers and dogs. So what we need to be looking at here is if you happen to be only a small group in your property, it can be quite advantageous to make it appear as though you're a force to be reckoned with. There's maybe more people in there than there aren't. Having a bunch of dogs, for example, that are proper dogs, you know, that mean bidney and stuff like that would be handy as well to act as a deterrent. If you are a single woman on your own, there are ways that you can make it look not as though that is the case, right? And I'm not talking about some Home Alone thing with some little people on like paper cutouts that you start moving around to music in your living room or whatever, you know, like that, pulling cords. But I'm just saying, think creatively, right? If you are a woman and you're worried about sexual attacks or something like that in an SHTF scenario, perhaps it's better for you to wear a baseball cap. Perhaps it's better for you to shave your hair, right? You may need to get extreme. You may need to blend in that way. You may need to wear men's clothes. You may need to look like a man rather than a woman. I'm just saying, right? So there's things that you can do, but again, wearing a full mask, yeah, and a helmet, right? Tactical helmet. We'll get into that in a minute. I've got one here I'll show you. But if you want to get into stuff like that, you can just wear a crash helmet, right? For a woman, what I would say, if you're a single woman on your own, in fact, no, we're going to get into that in the next segment. So don't forget what I said to you about in your perimeter of your property, right? You need to be, it's what in military tactical terms, it's called direct engagement, right? You need to be directly engaging with the threat as it's coming up your road. You do not want to let them get up to your door of your house and start knocking on the door. Yeah? Because they're already on your property. You're already going to have to ask them to leave. If you meet them at the gate here, the bottom of your drive, that's where I would be sitting, down there. I'd probably be sitting up against the garage door. I may even have the garage door open. And that could be a retreat, for example, if it gets gnarly. But I'd have the garage door open. I would probably be sitting outside in the middle of the drive on a deck chair. Right, with a cup of tea, of which is empty, magic hand. Thank you, my darling. So, bear in mind, you want to meet that threat before they get on your property. You don't want them knocking on your door, right? You don't want them knocking on your door. I mean, we're at the property perimeter here, so you'll see property entrance obstacles, choke points. We kind of covered that a minute ago. Limit attention drawn from smells, sounds, light. So bear in mind, you're going to need to be careful, because if you are prepared, and you should be if you're watching this channel, at least somewhat, right? Or if you're watching one of my other channels in the past years ago, you should be prepared. But the thing is that you're... Oh, I don't even know if I should grab that now. You need to meet the... You don't want people coming up to your door. No one else around you is going to have the stuff you're going to have. You need to make sure you're using the things you've got to your advantage. And it means that if you're going to be on patrol, you're going to need to be able to approach that threat in a kind of... I don't want to get too much into psychology here, but you need to be able to understand the difference between somebody who's posing a threat approaching your property and somebody who isn't. I hear a lot of people, particularly the old survivalist preferee guys who are like the commando types, you know, the one who've got all the gear and no idea. They're all like, yeah, I used to be in the army and I've got all this stuff. It's like, well, being in the army has no relevance whatsoever to urban situations with a... No. When you're in the military, you are taught nothing more than it's all about the team, it's about the dudes. These scenarios doesn't work like that. Yeah, there's no structure, there's no organization. It's not like that. Yeah, you're not dealing with the same problems. So a lot of their training goes out the window and it's not relevant. Because people aren't doing the things that you've been trained that people will do in a wartime situation. This isn't wartime, this is just desperate people. So you get these people talk about it as though anyone who comes, that's it, the minute anyone comes anywhere near me, that's it. But that's not a great move, right? Because you need to be looking, they could be just people coming to your property to barter innocently. It could be people needing something that you have that is willing to offer something that they've got. It could be something like a tractor stuck up the road and the farmer's trying to do this thing where he's going to get a couple of cows and he's going to slaughter them and he's going to share the meat out and everyone gets to eat and food. But the farmer just needs a bunch of extra people who are strong and fit to help him move this trailer off because there's no power, so he can't move it normally. Something random like that, right? If you go up there all Billy like, come on then, get off my land, and trying to give it all to big man, right? It's not going to end well. For all you know, if you rub someone up the wrong way, you don't know if they're going to come back and later on that night, 10 strong. 10 strong, right? So if you approach everyone as though they're some sort of a threat and you're going to treat them like that and you're going to start pushing people about the minute they even start coming up towards you, you're going to create so many problems. You need to be good at de-escalation, if anything, right? You need to know how to be assertive. You need to know how to de-escalate. It's got nothing to do with getting all big and hard and angry. because that's going to work against you, right? Don't forget, the most likely people that are going to be coming to your property to begin with are going to be your local area. They're not going to be hordes of gangs coming from out of town until weeks in. Right? So the people that are going to be approaching your property are probably, like I say, going to be people from up here maybe. Just here maybe. Sorry, please, I just wondered, do you have any spare beans or anything we could have, because blah, 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 right? You got to work out how you're going to handle that. They're at your gates of your property. Yeah, and you don't know, maybe they're useful to you for somehow. Maybe where they live is a perfect place for you to have that tactical advantage. You haven't got someone up there that you can give a ham radio to. Perhaps this could be someone that you could. You see, you got to think about things intelligently. You can't just be going all commando about everything and just like old, what's his name, old General Wesley Clark, when he was spilling a tea about the whole thing back in the old, 2001, 9/11 and all that, right? When he was spilling the beans on that, and he went into the Pentagon and they said, we're going to war with these like 6 countries in a row, Libya, Syria, finishing up in Sudan. Yeah, he said years and years ago. And he said, well, I guess, like the American military, if the only tool you've got is a hammer, every problem has got to look like a nail. Right? America's got a big military. Yeah. Got a big hammer. Every problem looks like a nail to them. Don't let that be you. Right? Don't look at every problem as being just because you've got loads of hardware, or maybe you got like machine guns coming out of you know what, right? Just don't think every problem is a machine gun problem, right? Because you can bring a lot of heat on yourself needlessly, and you can bring a gang round that was never going to come round in the first place, right? So bear that in mind, right? So the limit attention drawn from smells, sounds and lights. The reason I've got that in there is because, of course, if somebody is approaching your property and you happen to be prepared and you've got things like LED lighting, you've got maybe gas cookers that you're cooking up some food. Well, if they come up to if you're not doing anything to defend from people to be able to see your lights, like having blackout curtains so they can't see you've got artificial light inside, to start asking you where you've got power from and can I have some, please? Yeah, you need to hide that. Also, how are you going to deal with your cooking, yeah, when you've got smells going on? If somebody's approaching you know what it's like when you go around someone's house, right? You can smell what they're cooking from a mile away. If you're anything like me, I've got like proper wolf sense as well, right? I can smell it from a mile away. Again, it's no good saying I haven't got any food when they can smell it cooking. Magic hand in the house. Thank you, my darling. Is it tea time? Thank you, Magic Hand. Now you know why it's called Magic Hand, isn't it? Thank you very much. Cheers. Oh, hold on. We should have a proper toast, shouldn't we? Should we have a little toast to our wonderful wolf pack here with us? Thank you so very much, everyone, for being with me. I do appreciate you being with us and enjoying this show with me. Cheers, wolf pack. Love, peace and progress to the pack. Cheers, everybody. May you all do extremely well in the next SHTF scenario that is incoming. Oh, Emmanuel, bravo. Great to see you in the house. Have a quick chat, quick catch up in the chat. Make sure we haven't missed anyone. And everyone's getting welcomed in. Hairy legs and bushes are good scars. Oh, it's amazing. I destroyed our garage door about 3 months after moving into our house. That was 25 years ago. Amazing. How are you feeling about things, Ever? I hope you voted in the live poll tonight. Don't forget, if you're just joining us, we do have a live poll, as I like to do with these shows, so we can keep it interactive and get an idea of how you're feeling out there. What is your greatest concern when it comes to security and defences during you know what hitting the fan scenario? Is it your house burning down? Is it being overpowered by maybe gangs? Is it friends and family coming and knocking? You're not quite sure how to say no. Or is it that complete and utter emotional turmoil of having a desperate newborn mother with a newborn begging for food at your door and you don't quite know how to say no? So let us know how you're feeling about it in the chat, what your concerns are. Please get yourself over to Discord server as well, become one of our members. But do vote live and we'll be calling the results of that later in the show. We're getting into gnarliness now. So this is our property perimeter. Like I said as well, I'll just reiterate what I mentioned about ideally you want to be approaching these people at your perimeter, not waiting for them to get up to your house. Now, I'll just tell you quickly now, if you were caught unawares and they were knocking on your door, you shouldn't open your door anyway. That's the last thing you would do. This window above the door, you would open the window in the bedroom above the door and you would say, "Can I help you?" And guess what? That person will have to step backwards to be able to see who is talking to them. Therefore, they are now away from your property. It's just psychology, yeah? You don't have to use force every time, you can just be clever about stuff. Open the top window, "Can I help you?" In this configuration, they're going to have to walk backwards up your drive to even see you talking to them. Right? I'll tell you a quick story about an example of what I mean about this is a perfect situation where we need to consider this philosophy. Let's call it a philosophy, right? Is the fact that there was a competition between the sun and the wind. And the wind was all full of confidence and he's big and strong and powerful, right? And there was this old guy, he came into a park and he was wearing a big anorak, a big overcoat. Like Columbo, if you used to watch that show back in the day, right? Columbo Investigator. Big old anorak like that, right? And he goes and sits on a park bench. And this wind, you know, the wind, he thinks he's so strong. He's always trying to sort of big up he's always trying to outdo the sun, right? So he says to the sun, "I tell you what, son, I've got a bet for you. I bet you I can get that guy to take get his jacket off him, right? By blowing as hard as the sun says, all right, I bet you, I can get him off, his jacket off." So the wind goes, right, this is it. And he goes, blows and blows and blows at this guy's coat. And the harder the wind blows at this guy's coat, he just pulls that coat even tighter so that the wind can't get it off him. And the harder that wind blows, the harder that guy will pull his coat tight. Guess what the sun does? When the wind's all puffed out, can't go anymore, out of juice, guess what? Sun just beams as bright as the sun has ever done before. No force. Yeah. Nothing. And makes it as hot as that sun has ever been able to make it to be. And what does the guy do? He willingly takes his coat off. This is the way I need you to be thinking, right? This is fucking chess, not checkers, people, right? If you don't approach people the right way, you will be logged out of the admin, if you know what I mean, right? Consider how you approach people, consider how you tackle problems, because bull in a china shop, I'm the big old commando, I can take anyone on. No, you cannot. If you happen to do someone damage and then they go home with a broken leg or broken arm or something, and then they're going to want to get revenge. They're going to want to get revenge, and you don't know how many people they're going to come back with. They know when they're going to come and get you. You don't. So you need to be super, super careful. Yeah, don't mess about with people. Don't underestimate them. These could be drug addicts who haven't had their fix for a couple of weeks, right? These could be alcoholics who haven't had a drink for a couple of weeks. Yeah. This could be the 20th house they've come to where someone said no. Assume all of those things before approaching them, but approach with de-escalation, with compassion, with friendship, and those kinds of things, right? Knowing, don't forget, that your neighbors have your back, right? Because if you're doing a good job of your neighbors, guess what? Your neighbor's going to be standing out the front. You're going to be standing out the front. Your other neighbor's going to be standing out the front. These neighbors up here are going to be standing out the front. You don't really want to be huddled up in your house with all the curtains closed, with all the windows boarded up, not even knowing if anyone's even near your property, let alone on the way in. Don't make that mistake. So remember, closing up on the property's perimeter. So we're getting right up into close and personal now. So hold on to your... buckle up. So remember, expect to receive damage to your windows, doors and fences, right? Don't assume that you're going to get away with it. So you need to make provisions to, allow repairs, right? Because as I mentioned, you don't want to be having to bug out. we went through bugging in, bugging out, and homesteading, and the differences between them in the beginning of this show, right? You know that you don't want to be having to bug out. And if all your windows are smashed through, right? And you've got structural damage to the point where you can't live in your house because it's too insecure, because you've got a gaping window or your door's been smashed off its hinges, right? Do consider the possibility that if you get some gnarliness going on and you do get your door damaged or whatever, and now you can't close your door, how are you going to feel sleeping in your apartment, sleeping in your bedroom, sleeping in your home, knowing that you've got a window that you can't close and the glass is missing from it, and you have a door where the frame is damaged and you can't even close the thing? How many hours sleep do you think you will get exactly? Probably not many. So do bear that in mind. And like I said, if you even just have 3 people in your property, you have enough to do full rotation. 8-hour shifts rotated on 3. You have 2 people awake at every moment in time, 1 person asleep. Right? On rotation. There should never be a reason why you haven't got somebody outside your property guarding the perimeter. So remember that. Don't let them get to your house. By then it's too late. Like this. So perimeter defenses, security and defenses. When SHTF, don't forget, this is all about your homestead area. Bugging out security is a different thing we'll get into. So this is the danger zone now, because this is your building, your home. This is your walls, your windows, your doors of your home. This is they're up against your walls. They're at your door. They're at your windows. They're on your property. Guess what? You failed already. So you're building home. This is it. There's 2 more after this, and it's... So, emergency exit route and plan. Do not... It's all very well creating choke points. Let's maybe make it so it's easier for people to have to come around the front rather than the back. You can use things like rubbish, scrap metal, things like this that we talked about, right? To block off the driveway from them coming in. But that's at least where you talk to them. You could do the same around the back, right? But the thing is that when we're talking about funneling threats to one entrance, manageable threats, it means you don't want to be flanked from lots of different sides. If you can make it easy so that people are just funneled into one doorway, it means you've only got one point of entry to defend. It's far easier. Yeah? But don't let that get you trapped. If you give yourself only one exit and one entrance, then you've got pretty small options. If your house does suddenly catch on fire, or you do get somebody piling through a window somewhere, and you need to leave yourself with various options of escape routes as well. So although you want to funnel the threats to one entrance of your property, ideally, if you have to, right? Because you might be in a situation you don't have a front garden or a back garden, right? So the window above entrance, I talked about that. Communicate through this, right? Just use the psychology, right? They'll have to step back to see who's talking to them, right? Cheers, my darlings. So you need to start figuring out as well your escape rooms. So you need to start thinking through the scenario, right? We know what it is. It's Mad Max, right? We know who it is. It's a bunch of gnarly people who are crazy. Right? They're banging at your door. They're bashing their way through. You need to think now. What your escape room's going to be, and once you get into that escape room, what's in there to help you defend yourself, right? So you can have things like your furniture barricades, your weapon stashes already figured out in this particular retreat point. So this is like a point where you can fall back to retreat. So if you do get over dominated on the hallway, maybe, let's say they do manage to push through the door, right? And you get overpowered. You need to have a fallback position, right? Within your home, that ideally is some sort of an escape room, where you've got shields and you've got barricades as well, weapon stashes, so you're ready to just you've got what you need. Yeah. The other thing as well to bear in mind in your home is you're going to need to make sure you got your gas sensors, your smoke sensors. You're going to be cooking indoors, right? And you're going to be probably having all your windows closed so you can keep the smell in, right? You're going to be having the curtains closed and things like this because you'll be keeping the light in so that people outside can't see you. Have got power, have got this, have got that, have got gas, have got heating, have got food, and all the stuff they haven't got, right? You need to make sure that these sorts of things aren't going to catch you out, because you've got VOC is volatile organic compounds, so again, sort of butane, propane, things like this, alcohol, fumes, carbon monoxide, super important. You need to make sure, if you're going to, don't be shutting all your stuff up, because you're going to be getting fumed out big time for your own stuff. Right? So as much as you're trying to shut everybody out, right, remember that you're shutting inside with you all of these nasties. fire extinguishers. I shouldn't need to say that more than once, should I? Fire blankets. If people are using petrol bombs, you know what I mean, with bottles and stuff, right? Fuel. These are things where powder's a good one. You want to have fire extinguishers, you want powder because they're good for chemical and electric versus water or anything else. You're better off with the powder ones for chemical and electric fires. But even a fire blanket can be quite handy, because if you get gasoline on you that's ignited, then, you know, you say roll around, but a fire blanket will do it straight away. Decoy prep supplies. Again, like we've got the escape rooms here, you can have like a fast negotiation misdirection here with your decoy prep supplies. So you might have like racks and racks and racks full of food in your basement somewhere or whatever, right? As your full-on preps of your mountain house and all this business going on in your attic, right? But what you may want to consider doing is just to have like a milk crate sort of like sized box full of like tins and convenient stuff that looks like that's all your preps. On the kitchen counter or something, I don't know, right? In a kitchen cupboard, and they say, give me some food, or else, where is it? And you say, it's on the kitchen, just take it, just please leave me alone, just take it, right? So if you're a you know, a vulnerable person, like you feel like you're a vulnerable person, living on your own, or maybe just one or two of you or something like that, then having something like some decoy prep supplies can be a great way to just get them to just grab it and go. They're just going to want food, right? They don't really want to have to go and logging out people from the admin when they don't need to. Remember what I said at the start of this show about don't be doing any criminal activities you don't need to. Don't be harming anyone or anything you don't need to. Because there will potentially be retrospective law applied once law is re-established as to what went on during that purge time. Yeah? So, to give them a way to just grab a small box of stuff and run, they'll feel like they're happy. They'll feel like they've got all your stuff. Right? That'll be good for them. They're out. Gone. It might not work every time, but it's got to be worth a try, right? Just put some things separate in a box that you can just... you know, stuff like that, and then they'll just hopefully grab it and run, because they're just desperate. They just want food. They don't really want to hurt you, particularly if they're from your local area. As I said, they're probably going to see you on the school run next weekend for all they know, right? So your building home is a tricky one, because you do need to think this through. You do have intimate knowledge of your home and the rooms it has, and the attic options, the basement options, the shelving options, the under the cupboard options, the where you are sleeping at night options. But this needs to fall in line with like your recon room. Like, for example, like I said, if you've got a small CCTV screen running off your battery bank, right, to keep monitoring the CCTV, you'll have your ham radios in there. You know, you need to decide on a room, and you need to have an alternative contingency room in case that gets compromised, damaged, whatever. More for the reasons that you can't think of than the reasons you can, don't forget. So, this is all important stuff, but bear in mind, right, and I'll remind you here that if a stranger has got onto your property and knocked on your door, right, you have already failed, as I said. Because you need to stop them getting to this point. Once they're in your home, this is bad news. You're now one-to-one combat, which we're going to get into next. Which we shouldn't have to, but we're going to have to, right? So always directly engage the threat at your perimeter of your property, not at your door. The minute you open your door, they're straight in, and that's it. You're overpowered. It's all game over at that point in time. Cheers, my wonderful wolf pack. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, everyone. Live activity alerts. Just make sure we're not missing anything. So this is an important one, the perimeter defenses, because if you don't get the building home externals right, yeah, because don't forget, this is the danger zone. Right, this whole building home, walls, windows, doors of your home and your property and your garden, this is the danger zone, because the minute that's breached, the only point after that breach is where? Personal protection. This is one-to-one hand combat. One-to-one hand combat we're talking about here. So, what I would be doing typically, yeah, the way I would roll, let's just say, is first of all, decent first aid kit. But if I'm on patrol in the property, yeah. If I'm on patrol, I told you already, I'm going to be probably on the front driveway or something on a chair. But the way I'm going to probably want to roll is with something like a tactical belt. So this is what I have. This is my loadout. Right. So there's a bunch of different pouches for different things. There's my ham radio with the headset, right? I've got a flask there, got some gloves in there as well. Bunch of other bits and pieces, right? So, you know, you got the usual, you know, like a multi-tool type jobby thing like you'd expect, right? You got a fire making kit in here. This is more for bushcraft loadout. I've got a first aid kit in here as well as there's a little tarp as well just in there, tucked in there, so I can make a quick shelter. This is the tactical belt I have on my bushcraft camp, but it's also the same one as you would do on patrol. It's got all the stuff you need, and then you've got things like it's got a Gerber, which is one of my favorites. The Gerber is how I roll. So this is what I have in here usually, and the ham radio, and then I've got a flask in here. Right, nothing special. So, but the idea is, you know, you've got your tactical ham radio, you've got your ham radio on there as well. It's all ready to go. You've got your headset in, and that's all you need really if you're on patrol. And then plus you would have whatever your offensive means would be along with that. Like I say, in the UK, it's reasonably restricted in that respect, right? But you can get creative. So solid first aid kit, because there's no hospital care, and take no risks, because there's no good being some sort of a commando, right? And I'm not talking about some, you know, overpriced $200 IFAC thing that's basically an I got shot kit and it's useless about anything else unless you get shot. What I'm talking about is a proper first aid kit, which is going to be for your homestead. This is the Sigma Prepper one, to give you an idea. I have things like the oxidimeter as well, with things like the pulse meter. They're actually storm matches in case you need to make a fire as well. But other than that, it's got all the stuff that you would need, all organized the way you would expect, right? With all the different pockets, with all the different packages, everything's in there that it should be. You got scissors, you got tweezers, you got scalpel blades, right? I mean, I'm talking proper scalpel blades, as in like surgical scalpels, right? You even got a thermal blanket in there as well, right? But the idea being, and things like your, you know, even your cleaning your eyes out and stuff like this, right? So you need a proper first aid kit. Like I said, not some overpriced IFAC thing. This is an I got shot kit. If you're going to spend $250 on a first aid kit, let me just tell you this first. If you're going to spend $250 on a first aid kit and I got shot kit, why don't you just maybe spend $200 on a bulletproof vest? Prevention's better than a cure, right? If you're going to spend $250 on I got shot kit, just spend $200 on a fucking bulletproof vest. It's going to be a better use of your money. When you actually do bushcraft and you actually go camping all the time and you actually lived in foreign countries that are pretty gnarly, you'll actually realise what you actually need in a first aid kit. And it's not just a bandage, right? It's lots of options, and this is going to have to be a separate video to let you know what I've got in here. But you've even got things like toothpicks, right? Even like toothpicks and other little tools that you're going to need for small stuff. It's not just about big, massive bullet wounds with chest seal patches. This is just not realistic for the average sort of thing that you're going to get. Sure, you want a tourniquet. Sure, you want to have some options in terms of stopping heavy bleeding, but what you really want isn't really like that. The stuff you're going to actually need, just a small little tube of skin glue, job done, right? Stuff like that. So just be sensible about first aid kits, because it's super important, because there is going to be, and the reason I sort of mocking away the IFAC kits is because they're great. They'll buy you about 10 minutes before the paramedic helicopter gets to you. That's all they'll do. There's no fixing anything with any of that kit. It's literally just wads and wads and wads of stuff to pack into a wound while you wait for a helicopter to arrive that will never arrive. So rather than spending a couple $100 on a I got shot kit that's going to buy you an extra 10 minutes of life waiting for a paramedic that never turns up because this is, without rule of law, shit's hit the fan, right? So it's like, you're better off, take no risks, don't try and be a commando hard man, yeah? Be clever about it. Don't take any risks because there are no hospitals, there are no paramedics, and there's no helicopters coming to pick you up. So your 10 minutes extra stopping blood isn't going to cut it, right? If you're that worried about getting shot, get yourself a bulletproof vest or some sort of a shield, a SWAT shield, right? And it's a better use of money. No hospital care, remember that. Yeah? It's important stuff. Body armor, riot shield, right? Nimble indoor use. So I'm not talking about like some big SWAT shield. They're already in your home, don't forget. Right? So you got your SWAT shields that look like this sort of thing, right? I've got one like this. Look, £17.80. £17.80 for this shield. Right? Believe me, this is going to stop a lot. It's not going to stop firearms, don't get me wrong, but hand-to-hand combat, knives, axes, swords, this is going to do the trick more than not having it at all. It will also give you confidence to approach a threat. These, I feel, are better because they're more nimble, and don't forget, we are inside your home. This is a battle going on in your doorway. You're not going to be able to be messing around with this massive thing, right? It's going to get in the way. It's going to be cumbersome. You need something real nice and small. In fact, the ones like these are good. Yeah? These are good. Because you're literally, you can rely on your own defenses, you know, just your natural reactions, right? When someone's striking a blow at you and you're just like that, it's just natural, right? And you've got that shield there. Yeah? And if you're combining this sort of a thing, it's a big force multiplier. Don't underestimate it, right? Just your ability to look like you're protected is super important, because this is going to put people off, innit? If they don't feel like they're going to do you much damage, right? And you're turning up there with body armor, riot shield. Now, when I say body armor, you can do some creative stuff there, right? This is what I was saying to one of our VIP Patreon members, because we have like one-to-one consultancies, and she's a single female, right? And I said to her, I said, you know, if you've got money, which she did have, you know, to her, I've got strength and I've got all these other things and I've got no money, but she's got money, but she hasn't got the things that I've got. So what she can do though is spend good money on something like a, you know, like the old Trials bike leather biking suit, right? Don't underestimate how strong they are, right? Do you know when you see the motocross, wow, 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 and you've got those full leather suits and you've got the back brace that goes down, yeah, the back support as part of the motorbike gear, a full crash helmet on your head, motorbike boots, yeah? They can be beating you with bats and you probably wouldn't even feel it, even if you were a single vulnerable woman, right? And you would have a crash helmet on, so of course they wouldn't even know that you were a woman, right? But if you're standing there and you've got a shield and they haven't, yeah? You're standing there and you've got like leathers on with big old armor stuff all over it, like from quad biking, racing armor plating you can get for quad bikes. You just look a little bit like something that you're just not going to want to have to deal with, because it's going to be more difficult to take you down. And this is why I've got stuff like the old, we've got things like cut-proof gloves, safety glasses, helmet. You know, this is important stuff, because if you're rocking, right? So this is like a little dish, my little bowl. But you see, you've got your ballistics glasses, which you're going to want, because in case they're going to spray stuff in your face or whatever, or you're going to shoot something at you, a catapult, whoever knows, right? An air rifle here in the UK is probably what you're going to get shot at by. So you need your eye protection is super important, because believe me, if you get yourself blinded halfway through an SHTF scenario, it's not going to look good for the rest of it now, is it? So for not a lot of money at all, just give yourself a slight advantage. Cut gloves, right? So these are gloves which have threaded steel in them, right? That stop you from getting sliced. Now, these aren't going to help you with a stabbing motion, but with a slice, they certainly are, right? So So if you combine that, you can get slightly more hardcore. Now these are really more like chainmail mesh look. These are what butchers use. Now if you happen to slip and look, you can wear the cut sleeves and the cut gloves on your main offensive arm. Or defensive arm, should I say. So if you consider, right, if they've got a knife, you will be able to, more than you would normally, yeah, be able to defend with your hand and your arm to get that knife off them without getting cut. These can actually take being poked slightly. But in terms of getting sliced, just don't bother getting sliced, yeah? For the sake of like £10, £20 for cut sleeves, cut gloves. No hospitals, remember. No paramedics. No helicopter coming to save you for those extra 10 minutes that you've stayed alive, right? With the old IFAK kit. So you need to stay out of dodge. So why get cut when you don't need to for the sake of 20 bucks? So the other thing as well, mask, right? Some form of mask, because when people wear a mask, it does something to them. When they wear a mask and they wear a tactical helmet, cue the old Sigma paw print, obviously. But when you're wearing your tactical helmet, you got your main light on there as well. That's a Frogman Navy SEAL 1. Subdued Union Jack British flag there. So I've got a mount. This is a quick release mount, Picatinny rail mount I put on here for other stuff that we ain't gonna talk about. So this is you know, you can get mounts for night vision on here as well, which is loads of money. Now this is actually not even ballistics. This is just, you know, but it's pretty thick. And for the threats in the UK, this would be good enough for a crossbow, it'd be good enough for air rifle and for catapult, right? But my point is if you're approaching that threat on your driveway or on your street or you're out of your property and you're wearing your motorbike leathers with all the armor in it, you're wearing your tactical helmet, you're carrying something, if you know what I mean, you've got your eye protection, you've got your cut gloves, you've got things like this to protect you, you're just not going to look like an easy thing to take down for them. Even if you're a single vulnerable woman, would they even know? No, they wouldn't. You've got a shield to hide behind, you've got your full leathers on, you've got a crash helmet on. It doesn't have to be as scary as you think. And when you're wearing a mask and when you're wearing all that gear, there's something that you will feel confident to take on that threat and to approach that threat rather than retreat from it. You see? Because it's all part of that psychology, don't forget, about you know, when you've traveled like more than 40 countries like me and Magic Hand have, and you're going into gnarly back-end city streets of places like Hong Kong, Cambodia, Laos, yeah, Burma, Dakar, yeah, New Delhi, we've been everywhere, lich, right? And so and we have never ever once felt threatened. Why? Because we know how to travel, we act confidently, we know what the score is, we know where we're going, yeah? You walk with confidence, you know what the score is. I'm not a small guy as it is, which is fortunate, but I'm just saying, you have to be... There's a mindset. Don't underestimate the power of mindset here, right? And if you can try and trick yourself into that mindset with that confidence, right? If you are a single female as an example, right? Or someone who's in some other way feels vulnerable, then don't let that be a thing. Do what you need to do. There's plenty of things out there to allow you to become confident, yeah? And that will in itself come across, right, to the other person when you are indeed at that impasse on your driveway talking to them, asking them what they want. Because you look like you are ready for battle. I guarantee they won't. And if they look at you and they think, do you know what? They could probably get away with the first 3 or 4 strikes, 3 or 4 shots, whatever. They're going to know that they've got more chance of getting got than you have. At that point, guess what they're doing? They're going up the road. They're going up here. And they're going to deal with someone up here. Which for us is perfectly acceptable. If you want to go up the road to find someone who's slightly more easier to break into than me, do it. That is our entire task here, is to look like the least easiest option on the street. It's very simple. Yeah. least vulnerable option. And there's a difference between being well known and having a high profile. So you need to balance that out as well, right? So again, cut-proof gloves, arm protection, don't be silly, right? Tactical vest, belt. I like a belt. I've got a vest as well, which is is great if you're wearing exactly what you need to wear underneath. You can't guarantee what time of year this is going to be now, can you? You can't believe this. This could be in the middle of the summertime this happens. It could be the middle of the winter and it's minus 20. So some things like tactical vests I find aren't great because, you know, you sometimes are wearing more or less of stuff that you need on it or under it and so on, right? But it's up to you. Belt with equipment, defensive protection and tools, subject to your laws in your area. Wrist, ankle restraints, XL, zip ties, right? Think creatively. You got to figure out, and this is what's going to lead us on to the next subject, which is, you know, just needs a red cross on the chest, innit? Let us know how you're feeling about it so far and the things that I'm talking about. I hope it's hope it's all useful stuff to everybody. So yeah. Now again, everyone has different threats in different scenarios in different countries, so we all, you know. Yeah, exactly. All American prepper there. You look like a hard target and people will pass you by for looking so and so. Now, and this is what I'm saying. I haven't talked about wearing all your army gear and your camo gear, have I? I'm talking about motorbike leathers. There can be white and red bright coloured motorbike leathers. You don't have to look like you're tactical. You can just look like you're just a little bit of a harder target and maybe it's not worth my time. Because don't forget, they know themselves as well. There's no paramedics coming. There's no hospitals open. So they don't want to get hurt either. They know for them that's bleeding out, right? So here we go then. There will not be any medical facilities or paramedics available to help you in a medical emergency. I don't know how many times I have to drum it in. You will need to avoid all forms of potential harm, stay out of Dodge, which is why, again, the people who call themselves prepper and they're doing first aid kits have got nothing in there than just something in case you get shot. You've already failed at that point. The whole point is to not get shot. Bulletproof vest versus $250 tourniquet. Yeah. And the other $50 you got left over from buying the bulletproof vest instead. Yeah. You can get the stuff that you actually need and is actually useful in your first aid kit, right? So yeah. Stay out of Dodge. And again, part of the way of staying out of Dodge in the first place, don't forget, is by looking at the perimeter we've done and about seeing your threat coming in from the greatest distance possible, right? Intelligence is always going to be your friend, right? If you know they're coming before they even know they're on the way, then you're already won. So here we go with offensive measures, and of course this is a tricky one because it depends where you are, what you've got rocking where you are and things, but to give you some ideas, right? Some indoor-outdoor considerations. Right? Indoor-outdoor considerations. So for example, you know, there's, if you're into firearms and stuff, of course you've got some ammunition which is high smoke and some ammunition that's low smoke. If you plan on using these indoors, you need the low smoke kind, as you won't see anything in your house the minute you've let a few rounds off now, will you? You don't want to be messing with a shotgun in your house because that will go straight through the wall, straight through the other wall and straight into one of your family members if you're not careful. You need to be watching your backstops. I'm not going to get into firearms in this one because it's a different type of thing and that's up to you, right? But I'm just saying you have indoor-outdoor considerations of your offensive measures, right? And of course, these are all subject to your local laws and regulations, right? So the obvious stuff, the Second Amendment stuff, right? But you've got your long range and your short range, right? Because if you're at the top of your drive, if you're your drive and you're on patrol in that way, then you're going to be looking at all the long stuff. But are you? Because you're probably going to be engaging with them before you know if they're a threat or not. They could be asking to barter something with you. They could be, you know, wanting to sell you something or try and buy something from you. You don't know yet. So be careful with this. But things like lasers can be good. You know I shouldn't ever say this, but, you know, they can be a good way of keeping people at bay. Even just a flashy light. Yeah. You'll notice I keep this on flashy setting because the disorientation, the flashing frequency is designed to make the iris respond and close. And then the light turns off, so the iris opens, and the minute the iris opens, the light comes back on again. It's a constant recurring, can't see. Don't underestimate flashing lights even as being a thing, yeah? Tasers, mace, sharps, whatever's legal where you are, right? The usual stuff. But when it comes to sharp stuff, swords, knives, don't get messing around with that. It's not worth it, really. Unless you know what you're doing, because you'll end up just hurting yourself, or it get taken off you, or, you know, it's tricky. Cordless power tools, right? Chainsaw, classic, right? What I'm talking about is an electric cordless chainsaw. Why electric? Because indoors in your hallway, if somebody decides to break through your door or is standing talking to you on the doorstep, I'm pretty sure, yeah? I'm pretty sure if you were looking at them with this, right? And the benefit is, of course, that this can be used indoors because there's no smoke. And it's instant, yeah? The minute I'll pull the trigger, right? It's instant. Really? Do you think someone's going to want to get near that, yeah? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You want a tin of what, sorry? No, sorry, I can't hear. Say again, what did you wanted? Oh, right. No, sorry, can't hear you, right? Do you think someone's going to want to mess around with that? I mean, obviously, that's not what this is for. This is for cutting down the trees, you know, in the worst case scenario. But to have an electric chainsaw like that, that's usable indoors in terms of not near, you know, you've not got exhaust problems, you've got stuff like that, right? Again, it's a deterrent, right? You're going to reach them with that quicker than they're going to reach you with their knife, okay? Electric chainsaw trumps knife every time, just so you know. They've even got to get near that accidentally they're getting got. It's like a shark. I love sharks, but you're going to get got just accidentally brushing past them. Let's face it, with teeth like that. It's the same with these things, right? So think creatively is all I'm saying. It's about how you look. It's about the deterrent as well, yeah? No one's going to want to get involved in chainsaw wounds. No one's going to want to get involved in chainsaw wounds, right? Fire extinguishers, don't underestimate how much of a put-off fire extinguishers are if you're not allowed mace in your country. A powder fire extinguisher can do a pretty good job. Think it through, right? High-powered siren. You can get little earbuds yourself so that your ears are protected and theirs won't be. You can buy some pretty high-powered sirens nowadays that are designed to do some pretty crazy stuff. Look into it. Yeah? So I don't need to get into too much here because this will be down to you and your own thing, looking at it logically. You know, things like slingshots. I happen to be a marksman anyway from clubs I've joined, and I'm pretty good with a slingshot. So I've got like a Pro Diablo's my favourite thing. I need to put some new bands on this one. But you'll be surprised what you can do with something like that, right? It doesn't have to be a lethal thing. It doesn't have to be, yeah, half-inch bearings. Yeah, 12-inch I prefer. 12mm half-inch bearings are quite a nice size, right? You just got to be creative about what you're doing. You don't have to spend loads of money because I don't have loads of money. So all the stuff that I've got have just been things that I've gathered and things that I've built and designed myself. Right, there's some stuff that I haven't shown you that I wasn't sure if I was going to, but just to give you an idea, because I am a prototype engineer, there are some things that I've built that are a little bit more off the scale. Now this thing is absolutely humongous and solid, but this is a sentry turret that sits in the garden with whatever you want to put on it. It goes on a big tripod stand usually. So this is my own design. This is all machined aluminium. This is 6mm aluminium. This is 9 half-inch aluminium essentially here, the plates, right? So this is a pan and tilt system, yeah? So this was something I designed a while ago and machined. And it's pretty gnarly, but the point is that you can remotely control that with a camera on it, pointing whatever you want remotely from wherever you want, if you know what I mean, right? So I'm going to be doing something with that at some point soon. Bear with it. So I'm just going to go and quickly get another cup of tea. We're going to have a very short break, and when we get back, we've got the next part coming up. So, quick break there, just getting a quick refreshment. So, quickly, cheers everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and being with me. Cheers everybody. I hope you've, I hope at least one person has learned at least one thing new. I'll have to check out the chat after the show just to see what anyone even thought of it. I do apologise. There's so much for me to try and go through with you all. I haven't been able to pay too much attention to the live chat, but it's lovely to see you with me anyway. Thank you so very much. So, back to where we were then. Offensive measures. It's a tricky one. But what we need to get to is leading up towards the realisticness of thinking this through, as few people seem to in this space, right, is the restraints and mopping up. Now, a lot of people who I see who are survivalists, preppers and all this other stuff, right, the commando types, yeah, is they never seem to think this far ahead, it seems. They're always playing checkers, and they just wait until the next move happens, and then they think about what they're going to do. And they've never thought like more than 2 moves ahead. So one of the things that you find that they never think through is what exactly you're going to do with these people, right? Because if you log someone out, you've got a problem with moving it, the body and that, right? And what are you going to do if they're just injured? Are you going to help them? Are you going to, you know, keep them prisoner or something? Are you going to provide food and healthcare or something? I mean, what are you planning to do? If you have some fisticuffs and they get injured or whatever, and then they've seen all your stuff and you don't want them to go and tell their gang back from wherever they're from that you've got all this stuff. So what are you going to do? You've got to keep them prisoner? Right, you've got to think this through. Cuffs, nylon zip ties. People talk about that, and yeah, I talk about it, but okay, so you get some people who, you know, you manage to overpower them with you and your neighbours and your whatever, and your family members. And maybe a buddy you got staying with you or something to help you out, right? For a bit more heavy-handed. Right? And you've zip-tied someone up. What are you going to do with them, right? Where are you going to put them? Yeah, look, Kaz has got a good idea. She's saying use a chainsaw, right? Make it manageable sizes. If you've got a working freezer, I've heard that's good. If you freeze it first, it's like far less messy, apparently. Oh, unbelievable. So, consider the long-term consequences of your SHTF actions is my point. I started the beginning of this show saying about, you know, don't do anything that's like criminally going to be a problem, because you never know what laws will be retrospectively looked at after the event, right? So there's going to be long-term consequences, because if you do harm somebody or you do take someone out, you got to expect there to be some blowback from that. You got to expect their family, their friends, their loved ones to not be happy about that and to want to come and reap revenge, so, even if for nothing else, right? If they're already desperate and they've got nothing to lose, think about it, right? So you're going to lock them up, you're going to tag them and bag them, I mean, what are you going to do, right? And that's not teabag them, that's tag them and bag them, not teabag them. You could teabag them as well. Oh, amazing. So, yeah, bodies. Intel gained or given? I mean, are you going to figure out how many friends they've got, if they're going to come back, where they're from? Are you going to be worried about they've got information from you about your family, about the preps that you've got, the supplies that you've got? And then let them go, and then maybe they come back. What you got to do, you got to think this through now. There's no good waiting until it happens, and then you go, oh, I wish I'd done that, and then, oh, where we're going to drag them to, where we're going to put them. Clearly, more discussions needed live in the chat, right? So this is the point, is that you got, although we've dealt with all of these security elements, you know, going in and in and in, up until the point where we're up close and personal, right, and they're in our face. And then we've had some sort of an altercation because it wasn't our choice, but we had to defend ourselves. What could we do, right? It's difficult because we have to think it through enough to know, you know. But ultimately, the point is that... Oops, sorry. I just zoomed through all that, didn't I? We were here... Congratulations, we survived the SH scenario, because with all your preps and equipment, assuming we don't have to deal with any of this, right? Well done for surviving the carnage like a true Sigma prepper, right? Yay, we survived the SHTF scenario. Now, we're not done. We're going to have some discussions on this, but do make sure you check out the grid down scenario, right, which is the series 2 of the SHTF survival scenario shows I do. This is number 6. That's number 2. Grid down scenario. Pretty sure the link's in the description below. And that's a good one because it goes through what to actually expect over about a 2-week period of the grid going down, and at what point different security things start happening. At what point do all the shops get ravaged? At what point do you have home invasions start picking up? At what point do you have entire martial law kicking in? At what point do you have government start getting back up and running, right? These sorts of things. So you got to know, you got to be able to kind of, yeah, so look, that it's a good one, right? Just check that out. You won't be disappointed. So let's have a look at the live poll results. So I've been keen to get into this because this has been running all night. Thank you to everybody who's been voting in the live poll. Please, now's the last chance. If you want to vote and you haven't done, check it out. Live in the chat, you'll see at the top of the chat, right? So the live poll results. So which one wins the vote? So what we had one was then, what is your greatest concern when it comes to security and defences during SHTF? What is your greatest concern, right? And these are the 4 I gave you. And I designed this to be 2 physical threats, 2 psychological threats, right? So house burning down, overpowered by gangs, family and friends come knocking, or desperate mothers coming a begging. So, last chance to vote in the chat. You got 10 seconds to go, and then we'll take the snapshot of the poll and we'll put it on the Discord server for our reference, for our records, yeah? So here we go, 3, 2, 1, 39 votes it is then. 39 votes, let's do a quick screenshot of that then and we'll pop it on the Discord server for you all. So that's where we're going to take the snapshot then. So let's whack it in there, the results. The results of the poll. Boom, boom. You see how easy Discord is to use? Just paste your photos in there, job done, right? So yes, here we go then. This was the score. So what is your greatest concern when it comes to security and defences during, SHTF scenario? And resoundingly, the biggest threat that people are concerned about is the being overpowered by gangs. Couple of people there with a house burning down seems to be next, and that is a big epic thing that's going to force you to have to be bugging out, which no one wants to be doing because you're pretty limited for time when you're bugging out, right? Looks like friends and family coming knocking. Only 8% have got a problem with that, so no one cares about their family. They wouldn't have a problem at all telling them to go away. I know what you lot are like anyway. That's why we're all Sigmas, isn't it? Because usually we're the outcast members from our families. Cheers to that, my beauties. Yummy. So yeah, it's interesting. So overpowered by gangs, 100%, and I totally love out to Mojo, our latest member joining the Discord server. Love out to the Jamesy as well, who's also our newest VIP Patreon member. Thank you so much, my man. Really appreciate you, Lich man. Thank you to all of our Patreon members, really. Let's jump back in here quickly. So that was the results of that then with 64% of the votes. So summary, right? In fact, what I think we'll do now, before we do the summary, right? Because it's only fair while we're talking about it. I just think we have to say thank you to the people that have allowed this to even happen. Because I am 100% independent, I have no sponsors, no networks, no paid adverts, I'm not monetized because YouTube hates me, no external funding, no affiliates or no partners or nothing, which is why there's no affiliate links, there's no me trying to sell you anything on here with Amazon links or nothing. It's just you, me, and the truth is how we roll, and that's why these are the ways that you can help me. sigmaprepper.com/donate, all the links are there in the description below. Streamlabs.com, thank you so much for those of you that have helped me out tonight with the Streamlabs, with the super chats, love it. PayPal, great way to support. Patreon, again, absolutely wonderful way to support the channel with weekly bits and pieces happening all the time. And of course, behind the scenes stuff, the after parties we have, the free one-to-one consultations, you name it. Loads and loads of bits and pieces. So thank you so very much. because these are the people that are making it happen. Thank you to our VIP Patreon members. What a great wolf pack we've got going on here. Really enjoy our after parties. Such a wealth of knowledge between us all. Such a tight group as well. So welcoming to new people. Thank you so much to everyone who's made all the new patrons feel so welcome, instantly part of the family. All because of you. And so, without your support, Lich wouldn't be here right now. So, if you would like to join them, links in description for the ways that you can help to see me coming back with more of these shows every week, with all the things I'm trying to do. This is full time for me. There's nothing else coming in. So, thank you so much for those that are able to share your support, and really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. So we got a couple of what else we got in here? So let's have a quick summary then. Thank you so much for being with us live, everyone. We're going to have an after party in Discord after this with the VIPs as well. So what have we covered then? Let's just have a quick recap, right? And just throw in the chat and in the comments below other things that you think I haven't covered that I should have covered, and things you want to talk about now. So go for it. So please click the like button if you haven't done. If you feel like this has been something you feel my efforts has deserved. This is like, what, 50... It says 30 up there. It's about 57 slides in the end, if you include all the ones in between, right? So it took a while. So we obviously looked at why we need to prepare more than ever. We've talked about learned dependency. Don't forget, with the way the JIT system, the supply chain, the way things work at the moment, the crime levels, the poverty, the inflation is just, you know, more than ever. We need to be getting our stuff together. So unique individual considerations we looked at. Don't forget, this isn't like a, you know, a one-size-fits-all. This is bespoke, custom for your exclusive situation that you're in, right? With your property size, your family size, your budget, your means, and so on, right? So do bear that in mind. Of course, we looked at the homestead versus bugging in versus bugging out. I'll be doing a show specifically custom to that, to lay out the full rundown with a homestead versus bug in versus bug out, right? So we looked at the tactical advantages of homestead, and why that's the first option is to try and maintain your homestead as much as you can. Look at Perps in the house. Love you, Andy. Night fam, love you all. Thank you very much, Perps. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you as well, because don't forget, Perps is the one who buys from the Amazon gift link the old special sausages for our Hugo bear. The channel mascot Hugo, so thank you so much for the sausages, my darling. Look at Lasme. Thank you so very much. Wow, I really appreciate your generosity, my lovelies. Thank you so much. It's really touching. So defining your defense perimeters as well, we looked at today, and looked at the differences in going inwards and not ignoring the things going on in the wider space, right? And we looked at the importance of communications because of that, and the planning and stuff, right? It's super important you don't overlook the communications. I'll be doing an extra show, don't forget, about specifically ham radios. I also need to do a demonstration video of the disaster radios that I use, with the encrypted point-to-point messaging system, which is a great alternative or addition to ham radio communications. So we'll be doing that as a separate show, and that will be next, will be the ham radio one, because a lot of people want a full configuration tutorial to how to set all the channels up, and there's unfortunately it's a 6-part video the way I'd worked it out, and I'm going to do it as a live one, but we'll figure it out. Offensive measures and restraint considerations we looked at, yeah. So again, offensive measures, if you're doing things right, your offensive measures shouldn't need to come in, right? Your defense strategy should be that much of a deterrent. The offense is absolute worst case scenario, and of course restraint considerations, you know, you need to work out what you're going to do after you've restrained them or beaten them up or shot them or whatever you've done, right? And obviously we looked at everything else in between. So you know how we roll here on the Sigma Prepper channel. We've got the Mondays, we have the tier report, which you just heard the one from tier from this week, week 18. So next week we've got week 19 coming up. So we like to do the intel reports, the SHTF intel reports that I do on a daily basis. It's not always every day, but I try to. We'll have one tomorrow. The SHTF Scenarios, survival scenarios, usually Thursdays, either 10 or 11 p.m, depends if it's a big one or not. And of course, we have the Sigma Prepper live show, the live show for preppers, which I can't really justify doing until it's such a big show and so many segments and entertainment modules in there. I have to wait until we're probably Got to 1,000 subscribers for that, which if YouTube has its way will probably be in about 2029, 2030 maybe. By then we won't be allowed to use the internet anyway. So security and defenses when it hits the fan. And again, just a reminder, it's for information purposes only. This materials that I've put in here are contained in this presentation are based on my own experience and training and, you know, personal skill sets. So I'm not responsible for any use or misuse of any information I've given you here. This is just how I see it from countries I've lived in around the world and scenarios I've researched and seen and everything else in between, right? So bear that in mind, yeah. And that's my absolute beauties, yeah. Is the Prepping 2023 SHTF Survival Scenarios by yours truly, Sigma Prepper. So thank you so very much. I do hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've learned something from it. I know I always enjoy putting these together. I always enjoy the feedback afterwards as well. If I just even help one person to get one little plan in place that helps them to overcome or not be overcome, you know what? That's been worth it for me, despite any support that we've seen tonight, despite all of the like buttons that have been hit tonight, and despite everyone joining in tonight with the vote, the live vote. Thank you so much, everybody, for, you know, for your voting and just for being such a wonderful part of the show tonight. And, you know, remember, it's hard to do this all alone. Grow your pack, 100% Netrum Design. That's why we're here. And again, it's such a great community here on Sigma Prepper, such a friendly bunch. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming me, making everyone feel so welcome to the group. Every time we do get a new subscriber, every time we do get a new Patreon member, I love how they're made to feel so welcome straight away. So thank you so much. Do get yourself over there. It's a great way to make sure you stay in touch. The announcements there is where I always do an announcement for the videos that I've got coming up, so you won't miss any, even though YouTube seems to have stopped giving people notifications for this channel and certainly banned it from Google as well, from searches for some reason. They don't like the information I'm giving, clearly. So if you would like to help this channel, again, Patreon's a good way to do it, and share this video and share some of my other videos with your friends and family. Spread the word. Let's help our friends and family to become prepared, because the more prepared they are, the less chance you got of them coming knocking on our door when it hits the fan, right? At least that's the way I'm seeing it. Live super tips. Thank you, Daily Survival, for being on it tonight with the links. Moderatable moderators. Thank you again to Sandy as one of our moderators. Extreme Focus, the Ultra VIP in the house tonight. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you all being with us. Emmanuel, bravo. Thank you for being with us. I hope to see you again. What is your view on water filtration system? Personally, I have a Berkey. What is it, like the 4.5 litre version, is it? 6 litre version? Is it the big Berkey? It's just called the big Berkey. I like those. I also quite like the jerry can lifesaver, where you can pump it up and it pressurizes it. And you put water in one side and it moves it to the other side of the can. They're quite good. Soya water filters, I wouldn't worry too much about them unless you are just bugging out, because they're quite difficult to suck through. And you can get a bladder, you can get a silicone bladder that you can fill with like pond water or whatever, and you put it gravity and it will flow it down through the soya filter, but they take so long. So I'm a big fan of Berkey filters. Carolyn Rose in the house. Thank you so very much, everyone. Ready for electronic and booklet form. Excellent live show and amazing information. Thank you, Connie. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate the wonderful feedback. Tech Lords Gaming Cyber Lounge. Why isn't our government prepping us? Because they would rather as many of us don't make it as possible. Oh, wow. Basically, in a nutshell, isn't it? So thank you. I won't need Clorox or red paint. I got a woodshed. So we're VIP. Thank you so very much again for popping the VIP Patreon link in there. If you'd like to support the show, you can do from as little as 20 cents a day. 20 cents a day. Can you afford not to? But thank you so very much, everyone. I've had a great time. And you know, it took a while to get this put together, as you can imagine, for tonight, but you know, I think it's a big one. It's worth doing. I'll probably cut it up a bit as well when it will be live on the channel. It will stay on the channel, but I will just chop the beginning and the end out as I usually do, just to tighten it up for people that are watching it after it's streamed live. Yeah, so that will still be on the channel, and then I will be doing a director's cut of the 6 SHTF Scenarios shows that I've done so far, then they'll be uploaded onto the channel into a playlist. So that's the idea, and they'll also be linked into the website. And of course, remember sigmaprepper.com. You can always go there anytime you want and catch up with what I'm up to. And there's a blog on there, and there's all sorts of other stuff on there. So do join me on there, and like I say, get yourself logged into the Discord server, because it's a great way of staying in touch as well. And of course, survival gear as well. I've got loads of stuff going to be added onto this. There's my virus prediction tour I came out with January 2020. That's free. I've got the survival pack that I'm working on at the moment. I've got the survival hotspots as well, the ultimate hotspots with the offline internet. So in a grid down scenario, no internet. Of course, you've got my web server system, which is like an offline internet by Sigma Prepper. I'm going to have an exclusive 2 of these available, and a couple of SD cards for Monday. So watch out. David and Laura already got one reserved for you. Danger Bob already got one reserved for you. Let me know anyone else who's going to be up for it. And I've got full kits, including the Raspberry Pi Zero as well, to go. So go and check it out if you think you might be interested. Loads of wealth of information on my website. Spent ages making it myself, as everything I've made myself, including the music. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy my efforts. I hope you enjoy the slides. And what can I say? I shall hopefully be catching up with you, Fine Wolfpack, tomorrow, which will be obviously the Thursday SHTF Intel show, where we're going to be doing just an SHTF Intel, basically. What was I going to do? I was just going to quickly jump onto the YouTube channel. Do feel free to go and check out some of the other videos that are on the channel. There's a bunch on there. There's the tier report that you heard just a minute ago during the break. If you want to share that to your friends and family, it's a great one to share. It's 4 minutes long. It's pretty low key. And of course, you've got a walk and talk. Lots of people like the weekly walk and talks. That could do some help as well with the views. So give that a look. It's a great roundup for the weekly stuff. And of course, there's the securing defenses video you're watching. Readable. No. So, with enough of me babbling on, what can I say? It's been a fabulous night. Thank you to all our super chatterers. Couldn't do it without you. And thank you to our Patreon VIPs. Talking of Patreon VIPs, I shall see you fine people in the after party if you're still awake, because it's now 26 minutes past 1. I have been streaming for more than 3 hours and 20 minutes, but it doesn't matter because I love you. I hope it's been good information. What can I say? Please hit the like button on the way out. I've been Andy the Sigma Prepper. You've been absolutely great. Love, peace and progress to the pack.